and this is Planning Traffic. And we are live on YouTube and Facebook. So if anybody wants to chat with us, please go to the chat room and send us messages, and we can see them here in the chat on our screen. We have a special guest, Dan Short from FantomWorks. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing well. I don't know if you can tell. I'm sitting in a dark room right now because the storm has come through and wiped out power in the neighborhood. So I have a flashlight pointed at me, 3 candles, and a car battery powering up my computer and phone to make this night happen.
Hey, we really appreciate you coming too, man. Hey, car people get it done, right?
That's a fact. Yeah.
Even in the low light, I can see that's a really cool couch that you're sitting on. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, nice. old leather diamond tuck sofa.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, that's the real furniture.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so great to be on the show. It's always a little bit nervous coming on a new show for the first time because you never know what kind of curveballs you can get thrown. So, but then again, I do Facebook Lives, and every once in a while I get just this really big question or something thrown at me, or like, Dan, my God, you look old, and it's like you just gotta roll with the punches.
Yeah. I'll say this. We just had you on Motor Mouth Radio 2 weeks ago on Sunday, and people can hear that show if they go to our website, motormouthradio.com, and it's up there. And like I told you then, you're amongst friends. This is the other gig that I do. Lewis is a great guy, and we're like we're here to make friends, not enemies. So we don't screw with the guests.
Oh yeah, we appreciate you.
Yeah, but you bring live guests on here. You never know what they're going to do.
True.
That's
so
true.
It's just fun. No, wait a second. I don't run from any challenge. It's actually fun to be thrown some really bizarre questions because it puts you on the spot and makes you think. So. I mean, I actually don't mind them. It's just, you always have to be prepared for sort of that unexpected.
That's what a lot of guests have asked me coming on the radio show. They're like, they want to know the format. Is it recorded? I'm like, no, we're live to air. And they say, so you mean anybody can ask anything? I'm like, yeah, we never know. I never know what happens when I answer that phone. It could be, I don't know what's going to happen. And to me, like you said, that's part of the attraction of it. It's like,
yeah.
And my co-host and I have always said, let's see how good we are. Let's throw it at us. And we've been pranked. Howard Stern has pranked us, but you just kind of roll with it and you say, okay, it's part of the game, And,
yeah.
You're not going to knock us down, but you're not knocking us out.
So what would you guys like to talk about? Because, this is an interesting time to be building cars with COVID. Like let me just tell you about a silly little thing today. I need new filters in the paint booth. The filters get old, they get clogged. And typically I get filters in about a day or two. I got an 8-week lead time on filters. Wow. I got to paint cars. And this is the sort of stuff we're running into. I mean, with everything, radios. I've got cars. I've got 3 cars in my shop that I cannot release because I can't get the radios rebuilt by the guy that I used to get them rebuilt by because he's so backed up. So it's like it's almost like we're living in the twilight zone of car building these days. So the big question is, are we going to come out of this? What do you think? Are people actually going to go back to work and start producing everything from car radios to paint booth filters to hamburgers at Wendy's? Are people going to go back to work?
Once the unemployment stops, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. They have to. But like you said, it's kind of scary to have to wait it out. I mean, we don't know. What do we do if the filters never come back? You gotta.
You make them out of something else. Just right before 4th of July, I'm working on a Grand National in the shop, and I had to do the conversion for I did the brake conversion with the conventional booster and master. So I needed an 11/32 seconds hose for the booster. So we call our parts supplier, who's a big warehouse, and he says, "Oh yeah, we don't have any of that." Like, what? This stuff should be by the 9,000-foot rolls. He goes, "No, I'll have to get it for you like next week." I was like, "You got to be kidding me! Really? A piece of hose?" But
next week, you're getting something in a week?
Well, it is.
I need that supplier because I mean I'm getting lead times on things of 6 to 9 months. Months.
Wow.
I shipped off a bumper to a chromer that typically turns for me in anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. We shipped the bumper off 5 months ago. They're still not even giving us an estimated receipt date on the bumper. I mean,
That's
that's how
unbelievable.
long we're waiting for stuff right now.
Yeah.
So you know, it's a little spooky to me because you wonder if it's going to get better.
Yeah. And we were talking a couple weeks ago here on the show about the chips that the car manufacturers don't have.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it until a couple of days ago. A lady at work told me that she went to buy a new car and they didn't have any.
I think new anything is hard to find these days, right? Try and find a refrigerator. You can't buy a refrigerator anywhere. I mean, I went online trying to buy a refrigerator for my house, and they're telling me 3 months backlog anywhere you go. I mean, things are just insane right now. There's a lot of questions coming in. So what's your format, Louis? This is your show, and I talk too much. Ray already knows that. He figured that out. That's why he probably knows better to ask me on his show.
No, we're laid back, but what I'll do is I can throw the questions up on the screen here. Let's see.
Oh, they're popping all over my screen. I mean, this format, we're on Restream.
Yes.
My first time on it, you know yourself, Louis. We were fighting an hour ago just to figure out how to get me online because it was kind of a challenge. But looks like questions are popping in. What would you like to talk about? Because I'll talk forever about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got
especially, let me tell you, sex, religion, and politics, my 3 favorite things to talk about. But I think tonight we're going to talk about cars.
Yeah. So, are you going to Sema this year?
I am. In fact, I'm on one of the Sema builders panels. So on Wednesday of Sema, and I can't remember the time right now. Forgive me, but yeah, me and a fair amount of my team are showing up at Sema. The guys are really excited to see their first Halloween in Las Vegas. Have you ever seen a Halloween in Las Vegas?
Oh yeah.
Is that insane or what?
You can't even explain it to people.
yeah. People wouldn't believe it if they didn't see it. And I'm not going to get too risque, but I'll just tell you that I saw 4 girls wearing the very same costume running around on the new strip, the old strip, and of course the costume they were wearing was nothing. They were 100% completely naked, running around the streets, and that was their costume. So, Halloween in Vegas is its own experience. But SEMA is the thing we're going there for, not really for the naked girls on Halloween, right?
Well, I got to tell you my story. The first year my wife went, we get in the airport, we get a rental car, and we're coming down the strip. First thing we see is a large penis walking down the street, and his feet were the testicles. So when he was walking, they were bouncing up and down. And that was the first thing my wife seen when we get to Vegas.
I'll bet she was impressed.
Yeah, she's like, what the heck is going on? I was like, it's Halloween.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we're looking forward to both experiences, both SEMA and Halloween. And I'm looking forward to SEMA because, of course, they didn't have one last year. Because of the pandemic, they canceled it, but they're doing a full-blown SEMA this year. And they're really trying to get out the word that it's happening. And for those people who haven't been to SEMA and it's on their dream list of things to do, it really should be. I mean, it is a sea of automotive humanity. And what is it? Up to 300,000 vendors show up. It's something just insane.
Oh yeah. And this year they're opening that new building too, so it's going to be really jumping.
Yeah, so if I have one advice for anybody thinking about going to SEMA, bring your walking shoes. And I mean, if you don't do 20 miles a day, then you haven't seen any of SEMA, and you're going to do that for 4 days in a row. So your butt's kind of kicked by the end. You are ready for SEMA to end when you finish walking, somewhere between 50 and 100 miles in 1 week.
And then the after parties from the manufacturers, you got to go to those. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, good.
That's added in.
Oh,
Yeah, free
they
food.
spend a ton of money.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yep.
So
So am I going to see you guys there?
oh yeah, I was just going to ask you. I'm doing interviews at a booth in there, so I'd like to schedule you one day if I can get you to come by.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
I mean,
talk to people.
after tonight, you might not want to talk to me again, but if
Oh no.
just give me the word, I'll meet you at Sema. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. I'll get you. So I know Wednesday's already taken up for because you just mentioned it, but I have
I don't know.
Tuesday and Thursday. We'll connect up with you.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Now, Ray, are you going to be there too?
I don't have plans of being there this year. I'm actually planning on retiring after this year, and then I'll be able to do whatever the hell I want. So it'll probably be
Retiring. God, that sounds good.
It does. It does.
So what are you going to do when you retire? You're gonna end up building cars when you retire. So what's the point?
Well, there's relocation in the works too. So I'll be coming down your way. We don't know exactly where yet, but we're going to go south of New York. So that's going to be the first thing.
You look, serious invitation. Give me a call. I'll give you the address. Let me tell you, Virginia, we're a little screwed up right now with a really twisted governor, but hopefully we're going to get him out of the way soon. And at that point, Virginia, I got to tell you, might be the best state in the nation to live in. It really is. Amazing weather. Forgive the hurricane today. I don't even count that. It's a tiny hurricane.
I know.
Yeah.
But
my wife likes Virginia.
The weather's amazing. Really, really amazing state to live in. So, come on down. I'll put you up for a couple of days. You can check out the place and tell me what you think.
Excellent. A couple of questions that I always ask people who are in other states. I always ask about, cars, class of cars, car registrations, things like that, insurance, how that works out. And then the gun laws, I want to know about that because, you want to talk about crazy governors. I'm in New York. So listen, we could do that forever.
Okay. So on a relative basis, we're in good shape.
Good. Okay. Excellent. Very good. I will probably take you up on that. I will. Hey, now let me ask you a question. After we had you on the other week, one of our regular listeners got in touch with me and asked this question. They want, and through the years, as we've talked about your show and as we've had you on a few times, it's become a very controversial topic for some reason. And it's the brake checks that you do when you do your cars. And some people absolutely hate it. I don't know why. They're incensed by it. And so the question was, how do you acclimate yourself or gear yourself up to do those gut-wrenching brake checks on cars that you don't know?
Yeah, I'd like to ask that because it's interesting. I got a bunch of hate mail on how dare you, stop hard on the car. And your gut response is, go screw yourself. But in more colorful language, you don't say that to people. But the reality is look, when I produce a car for a client, there's an expectation that it's going to be safe. And by the way, there's 6 different levels of brake check we do. Of course, on the show, they really like to show the one that was the aggressive one, right? I mean, but we do many levels of brake checks, many levels of steering checks, because the last thing you want to do is deliver a car that when the client has to step on the brakes hard himself for the first time, he has a problem. And case in point, I recently received a 1960 Corvette that had been driving down the road. Guy was doing 50 miles an hour and a deer steps out in front of him. He hits the brakes and the car actually turned mostly sideways, went out of control. Not only did he hit the animal, but then he went and damaged his car further. And it turns out that his brakes, the only brakes on his entire car were the front right tire. So he had 3 wheels just going along for the ride. So he had no real usable brakes on his car. And he had never checked his brakes. So not only do I do it because I want to make sure that we get a car that in a panic stop does exactly the right thing, but I'm actually trying to encourage other people to take their cars out there and do it. And one more thing, you can't imagine the disappointment in a client of mine if I don't take him out and brake check his car with him. I mean, they want me to take them for the first ride in almost every case. And if I don't do the brake check with them, they sort of look at me with this big puppy dog face. Aren't you going to do a check? And I'll sort of look at them, and if I smile, they instantly, I see their one foot on the transmission tunnel, the other foot on the right side, their hands are on the dashboard, and they're ready. They love it. So look, for the haters that hate it, I don't care. I think it's the right thing to do. And if you own a classic car and you haven't done your own, 3-level brake check to make sure that they're good, shame on you, because you don't want to find out that you've got problems when there's problems.
You're absolutely right. And that's the argument that I used in retort. And what I tell people is, listen, as my daughters learned to drive, and when my wife was driving early on, she was a late driver. I said, I took them all out in either in the snow, which was great, or just in damp weather, and made them, I said, hit those, I want you to hit 30 miles an hour, jam the brakes on. And they're like, why? I said, I want you to see what ABS feels like. Because when you do that the first time in a real, God forbidden, life-threatening situation, you're going to be scared shitless. You're not going to know what's happening. I said, so I want you to feel it now, and I want you to feel it many times, so that if it ever does happen in the panic, that just becomes part of the architecture. That's not even an issue.
Yep.
And, right. You have to learn these things in a controlled environment. The last thing you want to do is be learning about your car when you can't afford to be learning about your car.
Exactly. Yeah.
And for any listeners out there, not only do I stand by what I've done, but I would encourage you to jump in your own cars and do the same thing. Feel what the car does. Did you by any chance ever see the show where we built a fire truck?
Yes.
We did this old an old 47 fire truck. And that truck threw me for a loop, because I did the brake check in that truck, and the damn thing, and I did it several times to make sure that it wasn't just me doing something wrong. The damn truck would turn 45 degrees. I mean, the ass end would swing out 20 feet as soon as you locked that truck up every single time. So I actually took the man, that was in charge of the fire truck out, and we did a brake check together. And I said, you need to understand this, because if you're ever driving this truck down, I mean, at 35, 40 miles an hour, it did it. I said, you're driving this truck down and you hit the brakes, you are taking half of the vehicles out on the right side of the road. So you need to understand that, if you're in a tight spot, you need to keep this truck down to about 25 miles an hour, because it has an almost uncontrollable response in a panic stop. So, it's good to see those things and experience them. So, look, I'm a pilot, and you better practice emergency procedures when you're ready for them, because when that engine explodes on you in flight and you're not ready, that's a bad time to figure out what you're gonna do.
You better know where that canopy release is.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you better know how to take shorts.
Yeah. And a lot of people get comfortable. I know good mechanics. Not that I'm a good mechanic, but I did this when I was younger. I changed my brakes. I was going out that night. I was like, I'm going to change my brakes real quick. So I put the brakes on, run in the house, get cleaned up. I jump in the car, put it in reverse, and I backed down the driveway, no brakes. I never bled them. I backed all the way across the street into my neighbor's yard. And from then on, I was like, you know what? That's something that even if you're a professional, you still have to have that mindset to check stuff. And never.
Well, case in point, what many people do, like I do when I do a front brake job, is I push back the calipers to expel the fluid that's behind the piston, because that's the dirtiest stuff in the bunch. And if you put it back together and forget to pump the brakes first, that first stroke is going to be gone. So, I mean, you'll get brakes after that, but if there's something behind you.
So never get comfortable when you're working on stuff like that.
Well, I think the kids, you have to be regimented. You have to work in a regimented fashion. You have to practice repeatability all the time. That's how you stay out of trouble. I still get in trouble when I do that.
One of my techs, a super guy, his name is Chris, and he's adopted the Dan Short brake check. Look, he's been a mechanic for over 40 years, and he never did that check until he came to FantomWorks and sort of saw why I did it. And he came in, it was about 2 or 3 months ago now, but he walks into my office. He was a little bit panicked, but he walks in and he goes, Dan, I took the car out and I did a brake check and I slammed on the brakes and they went straight through the floor when a line exploded on the brakes. So if we had not done that, if he had not done that brake check and the client had needed the brakes at a time when, you know, there was something really happening and the brake pedal had gone to the floor, somebody might have died, right? I mean, who knows that wasn't a kid crossing, you know, running after a ball in, you know, across the street or something. So I got to tell you, I think that yes, you will use up a little bit of rubber on the tires, but who gives a crap, right? Test the brakes and save a life.
Right. It's a cheap price to pay. But you're right. That's when something like that's going to fail, is under extreme pressure. And I've worked on plenty of cars where I look, you know, I'm not even doing brakes, but I pull a wheel off to do something else, and you see twisted brake hoses or frayed brake hoses, and the car just came out of another shop. It's like, how did somebody let this thing go? So I'm going to say, listen, I got to change this stuff, because this car can't leave here under my tenure with, you know, with this kind of shoddy stuff in there. And luckily, the guy that I do work for agrees. So and you realize it's all about, there's a big thing about profile that, look, if you own a little tiny garage in the middle of nowhere and you've got nothing, and you let a bad brake job go out, the chances of you getting sued are fairly low, because you probably don't have anything. Let me explain that when you get a TV show, by default, everybody says you're a multimillionaire. And so if I let a bad brake job go out, I won't even be able to count the number of people in line to try and sue me over it. So for me, when a car comes in, you know, we are going to test everything, push everything to the limit. I do the same thing with steering too. I mean, steering, we take cars out and drift them sideways to make sure that the car doesn't oversteer or understeer unnecessarily, that the camber and the caster are right, that the steering returns to center. I mean, we do a lot more than you see on the show, and probably would incite a whole lot more hate mail if people saw everything we did to cars to make sure they were safe. Oh yeah, I agree.
Oh, you know, by the way, I had a feature on my website. I haven't done it in a while, but you've got hate mail, and I would post hate mail from everyone, and boy, there were some real winners on there.
That's like reading the YouTube comments. You know, that's the best part of the video, is the comments. But I have to say, I was always, and I see this in my own work, but I was always amazed when you'd get under a client's car who said that car was at another shop or multiple shops, and then you guys go through it and find rotted bushings and rotted floors and beds, you know, hanging at suspension that's shot. And you just say, God, this is what happens. This is how other shops let cars go. It's amazing.
Well, but there's a really interesting word there, and the word is restoration. And what we discovered was restoration means entirely different things to entirely different shops. And almost without example or without exception, we discovered that cars that go into a restoration in shops almost never get wiring or suspension and brakes done on the car. Almost never. I mean, I am actually dumbfounded by the number of restored cars that have 60-year-old wire, 60-year-old brake hoses, and 60-year-old suspension bushings still in them. Like 80% of the cars that come out of restorations still have all those on them. 80%.
I have a really good one for you. I used to own a transport company, and I hauled cars for different TV shows and entertainers. So I'm not going to say the name of the show, but I take Carmelo Anthony from New York Knicks. I took his car to a show down in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to take it into the building. It was an indoor car show. They said, "Hey, you got too much gas in it." So I called the guy. He goes, "Run it out, drive it." So I'm driving around Charlotte, North Carolina, coming down this hill, right? I hit the brakes, none. I'm in a 69 Lincoln Continental. And all that's going through my mind is, I'm going to be on the news wrecking Carmelo Anthony's car. So I'm coming down the hill, I'm hitting them. So they finally catch. So I get pulled over and everything. And, I wipe my head off. I'm sweating. And they never did the brakes. They put a $10,000 stereo system in it, new interior, new paint, custom wheels. They put, $10,000 wheels on it and didn't touch the brakes. Yeah.
That's because if they work the first time they pressed on the pedal coming into the shop, they're good enough. And look, let me I'm going to defend some shops that don't do all this stuff, and I know that might not sound totally in character, but I'm going to. I can't even tell you how many clients try to get their cars built for 10 cents on the dollar. I mean, I get beat up all the time about, why can't you do a $4,000 paint job? I can barely buy paint materials for $4,000, let alone do a paint job for $4,000, right? So a lot of shops feel pressured by clients to get the jobs done that the client wants at the lowest possible price. And the strange irony is when people bring me cars, the things they want to talk about are interior, paint, and chrome. They rarely ever want to really talk about brakes and suspension and chassis and body mount bushings and electrical systems, the stuff that, in my opinion, counts. That's always at the end of their list. They almost always want the cosmetics first. And so for a lot of these shops that are struggling, when a client comes to them and goes, I got 30 grand to do stereo and some interior and some paint and wheels, well, they're going to jump all over that. And the fact is knocking out all that stuff under the car. I mean, that's big money, right? You rewire a car, it's easy 10 grand, depending on the car. It can be more than that. So I think that there's a reticence for a lot of shops to look at things because the clients simply don't want to spend the money.
Yeah.
So I'm a big advocate for telling shop owners, look, it is imperative you get out there, and when your client comes in there and wants to talk about just the cosmetic, the frilly stuff, you got to get to the meat of the subject. You got to talk about, is the chassis solid? Do the brakes work? Is the steering, rebuilt? Is all of the important stuff done? Because as far as I'm concerned, cosmetics are the very last thing that should be on anyone's list with an old car. You got to start with the foundational underpinnings.
Yeah, my contention's always been, I'm at the end of a restoration right now, and the car was just painted last year. And I said, everybody said, wow, the car looks great. Like, yeah, the painter always gets all the credit. Forget the thousands of hours that are in the substructure or in the suspension and all the work like you mentioned. I said, no one ever sees that. I get it. But, I know it's there. The painter, and I'll give you one more guy who gets a lot of credit, and that's the guy who does all the polishing of the stainless, because that's the jewelry on the paint job.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. Look, I get that that's important. Okay. Clearly, when you go to a show, people are looking at the bright work. They're looking at the paint. But the reality is if you break down halfway to the show, or your car goes on fire in the middle of the night, like I've seen cars do, that's a little bit more important.
That's one of the ways
just how pretty the bright work.
That's one of the ways that I rate a true car guy. It's, again, as I was rebuilding the car, you pull up to a friend or whatever, and the guys who get it, instead of looking, they don't look in the window. They're on their knees looking under the car, because that's what I do with people. I get underneath and I'm looking underneath, and I'm like, okay, you pass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I believe you got to start by lifting the kilt, and if you don't lift the kilt and look underneath, don't even bother looking at the top.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how'd you get into the TV show?
Wow. That was, let's start by saying it was a mistake, but I didn't want to be on TV. I actually am, and people laugh when I say this, but it really is true. I'm kind of a socially awkward individual. I was forced to figure out how to be less socially unawkward by being on a TV show. But at birthday parties, at New Year's Eve celebrations, I was always the guy in the corner that didn't talk to anyone. So I didn't want a show because I don't like being at the center of attention. And they just kept coming back and like bugging me. No, you got to do a show. This place is unique. And like you're an asshole to your clients, and they like come back. Sometimes like the worse you treat them, you tell them that they're a bunch of dumbasses for wanting this, and then they want you to do work even more. And that's what they loved about coming to FantomWorks as a production company, as a network, was that they saw this. I take shit from customers, and And basically, if they asked me to do something stupid, I would literally tell them, "Get the hell out of my shop. I don't need your money. I don't need your car." And so they kept pestering me to do the show, and I only agreed to do a commercial. They said, "Well, will you at least agree to do a commercial?" So we got it. You're not going to do a show, but at least let us come in and film a 2-minute commercial. And I said, "Yeah, as long as I get a free copy of the commercial, I'll do that." And so they did. They came in and they shot the commercial, and the commercial basically went viral. And they said, "Okay, we got to start shooting there as fast as we can." And it was like, at that point, it's like, son of a bitch, So that's how it happened. I got it.
They told you it was a commercial when, in essence, they knew they were filming a sizzle reel.
So,
exactly.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, they did. And look, it was a pretty good sizzle reel. And the irony of the sizzle reel was that I didn't know, I had no idea when they said they were going to come in and film a commercial. I actually told all of my clients, I'm not doing any meetings today. We're just going to do stuff around the shop. And so this film crew shows up, and in fact, the guy's name was Peter Reese, the creator of Mythbusters. He shows up and he's actually doing the sizzle reel. So he shows up and goes, "Where's all the clients?" And I told him to go home. And he's like, "Oh man, you screwed up." Well, it just so happens that a client shows up unannounced, and he had insisted I put a used engine in his vehicle. And I'm not a fan of putting used engines, and I like going out and buying a GM or a Ford or a Dodge crate motor, from the OEM. But this guy wanted to put it in. It had like a oil underneath it, and he was pissed off about that. And he and I exchanged words, and I shot his ass because it was his decision to make, to do that bad decision. And I'm out of it. That I have that camera. Is what shove his car up past. So that's kind of how this all started. And I was supposed to have many clients in that day. It was supposed to be a quiet and 5-second moment on film just drove the Discovery nuts. They said it was the first time in the history of Discovery that a executive chose the same as their #1 pick. And so they called me up and they said, "We're starting filming there in 3 weeks." I went, "Oh crap, okay." So that's how.
Nice. Now, whatever happened with the guy that you told the customer?
I don't know what for 10 years, took care of everything, and I think that all well. But what was most interesting was the
There goes the hotspot. Hotspot just went cold.
We lost him.
I was afraid of that. His audio was all breaking up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
Wow.
Might be back. There he is.
Come on back, Dan.
Where'd he go? I think he hit something.
Damn. Yeah, and that has become, at least for me, doing a show remote, and now we're still doing a part of it remote because my co-host is in out of state.
Mm.
You never know what's going to happen with a connectivity issue. People, internet services are all different.
Yeah.
Signals, bandwidth, it's all different. There's no guarantees.
And everybody's on right now because people are still doing stuff from home.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But the weather's always been a big thing. I mean, that's why I got rid of satellite TV years ago, because I could tell when the weather was coming in because the picture would start breaking up on me. I was like, okay, there's a storm coming.
Yep. Right here it is. Hold on, Dan, we got you. There.
I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, you guys just took off. I figured you guys had gone drinking or something without me.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
No, hey, listen, it happens to all of us. There's times where I can't get on my own show.
Yeah, you know, me and technology, not exactly great friends. So I apologize. I actually didn't hit a single button. In fact, I'll just leave my hands here for the rest of the show. So
You're good.
yeah, I didn't do anything. All of a sudden, you were gone. I was still here. You were gone.
Oh,
Yeah.
see, on our side, you were gone and we were here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That's fine. That's not a problem. Not a problem.
Okay. So
Yeah,
my next question, or go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just
So
going to say the show was an interesting. It was a blessing and a curse at the same time. But 9 seasons over 6 years, and they were easily the tough years of my life. I mean, the most stress-filled, horrible years. Though it was a tough gig, tough gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Well, but I guess I like to make a positive out of things. If you think about the exposure and the new friends that you made, and now your name is out there, people know you very well, which of course can be a positive or a negative, but because then everybody wants to see you, everybody wants to come and be your buddy, but
yeah, it's look, I try never someone comes up and get a picture with you or shake your hand or get an autograph. I try whenever possible to, but what's really an interesting phenomenon is that there's a lot of people and I don't want to be insulting here, but they almost become like instant super glue. And like if you say to them, "Hi, how's it going? Hey, thanks for stopping by, and here, let's get your picture," then they suddenly want to spend the next hour telling you their life story, and you just can't do that, right? I mean, we get 10, 15, 20 visitors a day. We get that many phone calls a day. We get way more than that social media questions a day. If I stopped and answered, if I just spent 1 minute with each person that wrote, called, texted, messaged every day, I literally would have to stay home and do nothing more than answer social media and questions all day long. So you get to the point where you just have to say to people, "Look, I'm sorry, I said hi, but I really do have to get back to work." So that's a little tough, because if you do that, people write really nasty things about you many times just for not spending the hour with them.
Right, they feel alienated. Something I want to bring back. I know going back way to the beginning of the show, the boat building thing and the woodworking was featured, and it kind of went away. But I always remembered that, and I think that's a really interesting facet of what you've done. And do you still do that?
Oh, absolutely. We do. In fact, we just did another full boat restoration very recently. I'm in the wood shop almost every day. The reason that was, and I won't say it was cut out of the show, but the reason you didn't see much is because, remember, the Discovery executives sort of would go down the list and say, "This is the project we want," or "This is the project we don't want." In order to look, we were doing an average of about 35 cars on air a year. That's a lot of cars a year. And for every car we did on air, we had an average of a backup in the shop in addition. So we were having to turn like 70 cars a year just to ensure that we had enough to do the show. And so what would happen is the network would sort of take a look at all these vehicles, and they would pick and choose. We want this one, we don't want any more of those. Like motorcycles, they told me motorcycles are pretty much poison. So we did a few motorcycles, but for the most part, they didn't want to see those. They didn't really want to see a lot of boats. They mostly wanted to focus on kind of the bizarre and interesting old cars. That's what they wanted to see. So there's a lot of hands involved when you start doing a show on a network like Discovery, which is, of course, the parent company of Motor Trend, Velocity, and all these other companies. And so, believe me, I had 27 bosses at any given time, and you're trying to keep all of your 27 bosses happy.
Right. I guess that's the difference in guys who work on things and guys who are technicians and just suits. Because, you know, when I saw, I don't remember the guy's name, the tech he had. He was a heavy, stocky fellow, wore glasses, did a lot of the woodwork for you, and he
Wayne.
did some dashboards. Yeah, did like an old Mercedes and all. And that, I'm not a woodworker, but I work with metal. But I was intrigued to watch him. And when you built that C cab out of like nothing, I was like, holy crap, that's craftsmanship.
Yeah, art. Yep.
Yeah, and of course it's important that you've got the guys and the tools to do it, but really what it takes is just the willingness to do it. That I'd be willing to bet that I could take either one of you guys and put you in the wood shop and say, you know, we're building a C cab today, and given the tools and just the opportunity. I mean, think about it. How many guys in a car repair shop will have the opportunity to go pick through 1,000 board feet of quarter sawn oak and hand select the pieces and then go out and craft you know, an old Model T C cab, and yet I'd be willing to bet a money that either of you guys, given that opportunity and you know, a paycheck to go do it, would dive. It's a ton of fun.
I know Lewis would make a good run of it. He's a great woodworker. Like I said, you know, I worked in a machine shop, and I've always been a metal guy, and I could work to a, you know, 100,000th of an inch and make metal fit perfectly. But give me a piece of window molding, have me trim a window, and it looks like a 5-year-old did it. Well, I don't know. I can never figure that out.
I'm pretty sure you're underestimating yourself. And look, a lot of the stuff we did on the show, we had never done before. I mean, you have to understand, we were cutting our own teeth on different things every day there. And the difference I think the difference between what we did on our show and most shows is we were never afraid to turn away from a challenge. And in fact, every time something kind of even more bizarre than the day before showed up, we're like, what the hell, let's give it a try and see what happens. And there was really a lot of that. And what you guys don't know is, hell, we probably filmed 20 or 30 shows that never made air just for, you know, different reasons. I mean, we filmed a lot of shows. We probably filmed a total of about 250 to 300 cars being built, and 176 of them made air out of about 300 that we did.
On that note, what's the backstory behind all the cars we see on those double stacked lifts that are always in the back of the shots? What's the story with those? Yeah,
that's just look, when you're building 100 cars at a time, and that's we were actually at one point, in fact, I'm lying a little bit. I think we hit 98 active builds.
Wow.
And when you've got, you know, nearly 100 active builds at a time, you have to bring in parts cars. You have to bring in, you know, cars that you're just not ready to work on. You have to, you have clients that can't pick up their cars. So I got to the point where even though the building is nearly 60,000 square feet, it's roughly the size of like a Walmart. We didn't have enough room for all the projects we were working on. And so I went out and bought 18 storage lifts just so that we had 18 additional storage spaces to put more cars. And let me tell you, every day at the shop, every space is filled. Those racks are always filled. And even the aisleway that we drive down, half the time it's got 6-8 cars in it. So, you know, we've got easily over 100 cars in the shop.
I meant to ask you this question on the radio, and I forgot. What obviously you like Corvettes, and it's one of your favorite cars. How far, like, what's your history with Corvettes, and how far back does it go?
Okay, so look, I think everybody starts with a dream. Now, for me, when I was 5 years old, it's like the only memory I have prior to being about 9 years old. But when I was 5, I saw a '67 Camaro, and that was the girl that got away when I was 5 years old. You know what I mean? My little heart went pitter patter, and I started chasing Camaros, and got one when I was 18. But the reality is even though you fall in love with the Camaro, that's the girl next door. When you see the '63 Corvette split window coupe drive by, I mean, let's face it, that's who is it? That's Christy Brinkley. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so you know, you can chase Christy Brinkley all you want. You're just never going to land Christy Brinkley. And then one day, a man walks in and says, I want you to build a car, and I want you to take a car in on trade. And the car on trade is a 63 Corvette split window coupe. And I pissed myself, and I changed my shorts. And then I said, I don't care what the deal is. We're going to make this deal. And we made the deal.
Nice.
So look, Corvettes were just the girl I never dreamed that I would ever land. And once we got, you know, we've actually built over 6,000 cars at FantomWorks. I mean, the throughput's just been massive. And so with 6,000 cars, you know, you end up with a few, right? Clients, you know, have the car in their backyard and they say, hey, if you'll take these 2 cars and build this one for me, you know, we'll trade. And there were a few of those deals that went on. And so I wound up with my dream girl, and that's the car I drive. I drive across the country. I take her on voyages. It's a 63 split window coupe.
So how many have you had, and how many do you currently have?
I kind of refuse to answer that question on the grounds that it will definitely incriminate me.
Your wife's close by.
Well, I'll just tell you that. All right, let me put it this way: I'm a very blessed man in terms of being able to achieve dreams, you know, through a lot of hard work and perseverance. And so if you want to know if Dan Short owns more than 163 Corvette split window coupe, the answer is yes. I love them. They're my dream car, and my ultimate dream is to have 163 Corvette in every color that they made, which is 7, I believe. Hang on. Light blue, dark blue, black, white, silver, red. Is that 6 or 7? I can't remember. So those are the colors. Oh, and gold. So there were 7 colors. And that is my ultimate dream at the end. My collection will be complete, and all I need is 7 cars in it, 763 Corvettes. I'm not there. I probably will never get there, but that is my ultimate dream. I think they're just the most gorgeous car ever made.
Is the C2 your clear ultimate most favorite Corvette model ever made?
Well, there's one more contender in there, and that's the 57. And the reason for the 57 are you aware it holds one record that I believe no other American car holds? Do you know what it is?
I'm not sure. No.
Yeah. Fastest production car in the world.
Oh, okay.
In 1957, the Fuelie, the 283 Fuelie, which was actually 290 horsepower, but Chevrolet decided to call it the 283 just because that name was a little bit, you know, that moniker was a little more interesting. In 1957, the Corvette was the fastest car ever produced in the world, the F1 Fuelie, and so you gotta throw a big bone to the 1957 Corvette. So if you said 57 and then jump to the 63, I'd say yeah, that's probably, like, if you could only have 2 Corvettes in your collection, it'd have to be a 57 Fuelie and a 63 split window.
Fair enough. Fair enough. The cars that are like in the front of your when the show opened, when they show the front of your shop, are most of your personal cars? I always had the feeling they were your cars that were out front.
No, not at all. What we used to do when we were in our growing days is we would get permission from the clients, but we would take about 6 or 8 cars that we were working on. You know, we were either waiting for a part on them or we were waiting for them to be delivered, but we would go roll their cars out on the front yard of the shop, and it made a hell of a display. I mean, it's a gorgeous building, and then to have, you know, 57 pickup out there, you know, a 1950 Ford F1 pickup, a 63 Corvette, a 69 Mustang, you know, that makes a hell of a little bit of window dressing. So we did that for years. We don't do it much anymore just because it's so much work to get in there and, you know, get, you know, 6, 8, 10 cars out on the lawn. We do it every once in a while, but they were mostly clients' cars.
Okay, very good.
Nice. Well, what we do now, it's 9:49. So the next 10 minutes, I'm going to let some other people jump on the screen, and they'll probably ask you some questions. Now these are our usual hang out in the garage guys, so we can trust them. You know, they're not going to hit you with a crazy question.
Well, even if they do, we'll figure it out as we go. You know.
Okay.
That's Chicken Leg John. I saw him. Where'd he go? Oh, that's Nautical Man Brian.
Hey Dan, how you doing? Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. Good evening.
There we got Heidi and Arco coming on.
Brian is our resident Mustang lover. And
well, wait, are you going to ask a question, John? You can't just come on and show your pretty face and not say something.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
So I know being a Corvette lover, but in your own personal car collection, what else do you have for cars?
Well, of course, 67 Camaro. In fact, we are in the middle right now of bringing my very first car back to life. It was a 67 Camaro I bought when I was 19. You know, for the last 20 years since I've created FantomWorks, it's that shoemaker shoe thing. It's been stuffed away in a garage for about 20 years. Well, we pulled it out a few months ago, and we're now going through that car completely. So it will be a black on black 67 RSSS. It's a factory original car that will look like a piece of black glass when it comes out. And we're actually building it right now.
That's awesome.
Nice. Nice.
So my first car ever, and it'll be the last car. The last thing. In fact, I'll probably get buried in it.
Chassis John, he was eating, so I guess he jumped back out.
He's He's at like I don't know if that was a chicken leg for a minute. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
All right, so hang on. Now, what about all these questions on the side?
Okay, let's get Lee's on. There he goes on the screen.
Okay. Are we going to read this? The cost is. Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's an interesting point. They're talking about paint jobs, and people ask me all the time, how much is a paint job? Would you agree that you can paint most cars for about $5,000, but the prep work could be another $100?
Could be,
that's kind of the nature of painting cars and how bad they are. I have looked at cars that had $2 million paint jobs on them. So the cost of the paint job is rarely in the actual spraying. It's all about the prep. And you know, there are vehicles that we've spent, like if you remember the Sema Mustang, that bullet Mustang that we created out of all metal. Just in body work alone, metal fabrication, redesign, and body work, I'm sure we exceeded $200,000 just in body work on that car.
Yeah,
I mean, $200,000, and let me tell you, I was not charging enough at $200,000 on that car. Not
the
charging
metal
enough.
fab and all was beyond reproach. That was fantastic. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think the car came out magnificently, but the hours, it was just thousands of hours of work.
At that point, I almost want to see the car just cleaned up and clear coated, you know, and I want to see that metal work.
You know, we did that with one vehicle. We built a 50 Studebaker pickup and left it in raw metal because it was. And I think that's the way. Unfortunately, you know, about a year or so later, wanted it painted, but I think that truck should have stayed in raw metal forever. It was phenomenal.
No, you keep looking at me.
Right. We got Arco and Heidi. You got a question?
Oh, we always have questions.
How you doing, Dan?
Hi,
Nice to
Dan.
meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Ditto.
I'm curious because I love logistics. How many people do you have working to get that many cars out for how many years? I mean, that's amazing. The production is off the charts.
Yeah, and the answer is that number has varied greatly. Currently, my shop is a fair amount smaller, and I'm a much happier man for it. We're a shop of just 14 people right now. In fact, I don't know if you've been to our website. We actually had, tragically, just 2 days ago, one of our young body men was killed.
Man.
This just happened. I think it was Tuesday. He was out on his motorcycle, tragically lost control, and at a very high rate of speed went into a brick mailbox and was killed instantly.
Oh my God.
So a big loss for the FantomWorks family. So
no kidding.
Right now we're at 13 people, which is actually a beautiful number, and each individual has about 4 cars assigned to them. And that so if you actually look numbers wise, take our staff times 4, and that's the active number of cars we work on a daily basis today. We have had as many as 35, 40 people at a time, which is why we had 100 cars in process at a time.
That's crazy.
So speaking of logistics, like Heidi said, who juggles all of those jobs and parts orders and work time frame and who handles all that?
I'll give you 3 guesses.
Yeah.
Look,
I think I know the answer to one. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, and it's tough to do, but I mean, if you've seen the show, Audrey is an amazing young lady. She has taken a lot of that burden. Like we finally divided it up, and we're like dad and mom at the shop. That I sort of top level manage all the clients and the projects at a certain level, but she's on the floor every day, kicking the guys' asses, getting them to fill out the forms right, track the hours, making sure that parts get stuck in their hands. She does an amazing job. That young lady, I don't know what I'd do if she ever left. And I mean, I've got several people that are like that now help me out with it. There was a period where I did much of that by myself, and I was going crazy. Today, Audrey picks up a lot of the burden. Mike picks up a lot of the burden. And of course, we couldn't do any of this without my wife. My wife and I are together 24 hours a day. And I got to tell you, I don't know what I'd do without her, because she is the love of my life and the person who takes care of all of the paperwork. So very cool.
All right.
And it's hard because it's like romper room when you have employees. You got, all you do is babysit all day pretty much,
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I feel singularly blessed that right now we have an amazing crew. And I don't just say that loosely, because let me tell you, there have been times where we have had crews that, you just wanted to walk in every day and just go, you're fired. Everybody get out.
Yep.
Just leave.
I try that. I try that every single day with her, but she always comes back.
That's because
exactly. But today we've got a pretty amazing crew, and when I bring someone on, I say, look, there's a 4-letter word that I'm looking for, and it's called care. And if you care, I will put up with almost any level of honest mistakes. If you don't care, there's nothing we can do, and I'm getting rid of your ass real quick. So we have, in fact, had a lot of people show up, and within 3 or 4 or 5 days, if I don't see that they care, they're gone. And today I'm very fortunate because we really do have an amazing crew.
Yeah, that's huge. We think about that a lot. And we've had employees in the past, and now it's back to us, because we know we care the most, and we want the best product coming out, and we want to make sure everything's done to our standards. And unless you have people who care, you're right, you can't make sure that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's really tough, because look, if you've got a man or a woman working on a project and they're just overlooking problems, you're going to find out about those problems later on, right? I mean, they're going to surface. And I would much rather deal with a client who's a little bit pissed off because their bill's a little bit bigger than they thought, than deal with a client who gets a car back and says, you didn't see this, you didn't fix this. And so I'm really lucky that the guys, I give them this mantra: if it's low-hanging fruit, if it's something on the car, if it's safety related, we don't even go back to the client and ask. I tell the client, look, I'm fixing your safety related stuff, and if you have a problem with that, because they have to sign up to that, don't even bring your car in. But once your car is in, if we find anything safety related, we are fixing it, period. If it's cosmetic, that's when we call them up and say, hey, what do you want to do about this? And we're lucky. We've got pretty good clients too, for the most part.
Yeah, because your ass is on the line, so you got to fix that kind of stuff. And a lot of times you bitch and piss and moan about it, but it's like, too bad. Either we're going to fix it or you take it down the road to Joe's shop.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, because look, you know that they're going to sue the last shop that touched it. I don't care if they get drunk and they drive into a busload of kids and it's completely their fault. If you changed the spark plugs out 6 months ago, but you're the last shop that touched it, you're going to get sued. So you got to protect yourself. That's why we won't bring any car in without putting it on the left. I don't care if we're literally changing the oil. We're going to go through and check the brakes and the steering in order just to change the oil, or we're not gonna change the oil. So that's our mantra, and it's served us well so far. So so how big is your shop? Do you have a fairly big shop?
We actually have 3 shops. We have a body shop across the street from this one here, and then we have another shop which is 2 miles out of town.
And we do like just our kind of oil changes and stuff for the community, but they think that's all we do is oil changes. So it works out pretty good. We're kind of sleeper builders. They don't even know.
Yeah, that's
it cracks us up when we put on big, big car shows and stuff here, and a lot of the stuff that we do here in town, they're like, "Whoa, we didn't know you guys did that." So it's kind of stealthy the way we do things here,
People came up to me and be like, "That's really nice that your friends came to your car show." I'm like, I know like 5 people here. One of the things that we do find is like we actually had a build that we aren't transmission specialists, so we brought it to our transmission specialist and brought it back, and I was actually driving it with my son in the car, and I get back and this is something's really, really bad. And we put the car up and found out that there wasn't a tight bolt in the front end. They
actually, the guy that built the car,
it was scary.
And then they brought it to us to finish a bunch of stuff and whatever.
But he'd been driving it for 2 years.
Yeah, driving it for 2 years, and all the ball joints, the nuts on the ball joints, they're ready to fall off. And the shock mounts and everything. It was a joke,
So it reminds me of, Dan, I think was it a K5 Blazer, a yellow one, or was it white that you did? It was a lifted truck. I remember you drove it, and the thing was like a death trap, and the guy had been driving it didn't know there was anything wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean, look, things will get through shops, and we could spend an entire hour just talking about that, because while I think that it shouldn't happen, at the same time, there's a lot of reasons it does happen, right? I mean, shops, I can't even tell you the number of shops I know where the clients, who are typically better funded than the shop owner, will try and pressure the shop into doing work that they're not going to pay for, and in some cases the shops, they just don't have the resources to do the extra work for free. So I could defend both sides of that equation, but what I don't like is when I see a shop that builds something where you almost see it's deliberately wrong. And the truck you're talking about, the way the suspension and steering was put together on that vehicle, it was so ridiculously unstable that really what the shop should have done is said, look, we're not going to release this until we come up with a better solution. And unfortunately, I know so many shop owners that, they're just trying to get that next electric bill paid, and that's really what they're working for. So they'll take the job, and when they run out of money, they have to sort of kick the project out the way it is. So I'm sort of on both sides of that fence. I could defend both the shop owners and the clients, depending on who was the one that was the stupider in the equation.
The stupider.
Hey, I get a quick.
Go ahead, Ray.
So I was just been watching your episodes last week. There was that, I don't know, French car, the one with the 2 girls that were the dancers, and the car would jump all over the place.
Those girls that stole my heart, yeah, they were gorgeous. Yeah.
So
that's called a
car. Have you ever worked on a car like that or something? And everything was so messed up, you couldn't get any parts, that you just totally scrapped and redesigned the whole suspension or something?
Long story short, we have never had a car come in that we have not been able to either find, fix, or manufacture the parts for, ever.
Because that car was so crazy. I don't know what you had to do with that thing.
Yeah, but that's the way it was designed, right? I mean, that car was designed to have suspension so ridiculously bouncy, because the spec on that car was it had to be able to transport 100 eggs through unplowed fields without breaking eggs. So they had this unbelievably long travel suspension on that car.
It just doesn't seem safe.
Crazy.
Let me tell you, on a freeway exit ramp, that car wasn't safe. But in a field carrying eggs, it did an amazing job.
Didn't it have like 3 bolts or a tiny spindle or something weird with that? I'm trying to remember.
3 lugs on the wheels. I mean, 3? Really? Yeah.
How safe is that?
That's a freaky little car. It's not the safest thing in the world, but you have to remember that car was designed in a world where there were very few paved roads. People were doing 30 miles an hour over dirt fields, and that's really what the car was designed for. So when you put it in sort of that setting, I would say the car actually was a pretty good car. I'm not a huge fan of them, but they are interesting cars.
Yeah.
Speaking of interesting cars, my favorite episode or favorite car that you've done was the Ampha car, or the boat car. Talk about not wanting to break down in the middle of something. I certainly wouldn't want to be driving my car down late.
You know, I fell so in love with the Ampha car building it that I went out and bought a rotted out Ampha car, and we have just finished the restoration of it.
Wow.
My buddy's got 3 of them.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was. But you know what? I have to say that you and I are one mind about details. He hates it, but I am like a detail freak. And when you held up the pink trim, I was like, that trim's pink. I remember this from way back. And then we watched it again not that long ago, and I was like, I can't believe that was pink trim. Like, it was awful.
That, believe it or not, that is new stock that had been sitting on the shelf for something like 50 years.
Just faded.
So that's why it was pink. It just faded.
Yeah, can't really help that. But
and not what I can do about it.
Something that comes up on this show pretty often, and we addressed it on a radio show, but I'd like to bring it up to you again to have you voice your decision about Coyotes versus LSs.
Oh dear.
Henry, wait a
Good thing Terry's
second. Henry Ford is my automotive hero. Okay? There is no automotive genius greater than Henry. All right. So to Ford, I give all accolades. Now, when it comes to post-war Ford, starting in 1947, Chevrolet started kicking Ford's ass and never stopped. And so for me, everything prior to the war, as far as I'm concerned, it is Ford all the way. After World War II, it's Chevy. Although I will tell you, Mopar had their period in the early 70s when even Chevrolet fell off the face of the earth. So I have to give the 3 periods to the 3 different manufacturers. But when it comes to the Coyote, Ford screwed the pooch. It's a magnificent engine. It is powerful. It's got a power band on it that I think God himself inspired. So the engine, when you finally fit one in a car, they are magnificent. But let me tell you, fitting them in a car requires about 10 times the work. No, I'm wrong. It requires 40 times as much work as it takes to put an LS into a Chevrolet. So Ford screwed the pooch. They built an engine that won't fit in any of their cars. And you know, so that's their problem. The fact that it's an overhead cam motor makes it perform really well, but the fact that it's an overhead cam motor makes it fit in absolutely nothing. And that's why I give the edge to LS's all the way.
So that's your go-to motor. You won't go to a traditional small block depending on the car?
Well, we're doing a resto mod for a man right now with a small block, with a traditional. In fact, we took a 350, we punched it out, stroked it. It's a 383. Makes an excellent resto mod motor if that's what the client wants. But if what you want is modern fuel injection, look, 28 miles to the gallon. Come on, when you can take an LS3, drop it in a Camaro or an old Corvette and get 28 miles to the gallon, and it starts 100% of the time, it's pretty hard to beat that equation, you know?
Yeah.
Very true.
And they're ridiculously powerful.
You're going to have to come back on the radio because that was a much more in-depth and eloquent answer than you gave us 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to hold it to
Fair enough.
a review on that one. Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think about that too. I'm just looking at the questions here. Why do old vehicles start so rough and newer vehicles start so smooth?
Fuel injection.
Let me tell you, I give it's all about tuning. You know, when people ask me, you know, I must have an LS because you can't get a reliable carbureted car. That's absolute garbage. I've got carbureted cars that for 20 years, every time I turn the key, they just start. And that's without rebuilding the carburetors. Look, you get the carburetors tuned up correctly. If it's got points, you make sure the points are good. You make sure the balanced resistor is good. You make sure the electrical system is solid, and you're getting an honest 13.25 volts or more, and the car will start every single time. You don't have to have an LS unless you want an LS. We have carbureted cars that are 90 years old that'll start with the first. You know, usually that's the press of a button, not the turn of a key, but they'll start every time. It's not that hard to do.
Now, we have a carburetor builder here in my town, Benchwicks. Have you ever heard of them?
I haven't, but you know, not that he's not a great builder. I'm sorry, I haven't heard of that builder. No.
Yeah, he ships all over the world. He's known everywhere. Benchwicks carburetors. But he told me the same thing. He said that, hey, I can tune a carburetor and it'll start.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Look, we don't have problems with carbureted cars starting, and let me tell you what, I actually talk a lot of people out of LSs because they'll come to me and they say, well, I have to have an LS if it's going to start. And wait a second, let's just back this conversation right up, and in many cases we'll literally just go out and tune the engine. Now that doesn't take 10 minutes. I mean, you know, we'll spend a couple days you know, going through an engine. We'll do a compression check, a leak down test. We will take the carburetor and we'll check the throttle shafts, and if it has leaking throttle shafts, we'll rebuild the throttle shafts, the housing. I mean, we go through everything. But when we're done, for a whole lot less money than an LS conversion and a whole lot more authentic experience with an old car, you can absolutely get a carbureted, point-fired, distributed car to run just as reliably, really, as an LS car can run. It just takes a little bit of work. Oh, and knowing limitations. Like, everybody here know about the poisonous thing called ethanol-based gas?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Ethanol is poison to a carburetor. Poison.
Yep.
Yeah. We have a 29 Roadster that runs a 68. What is it? 68?
It's a 327 Corvette 327 from 68.
But that's the most reliable car we have, honestly. Like, we can go out at 40 below, pull it out of storage if we want to, and she will start every time. Yeah. It's crazy. So,
so nothing wrong with a carburetor ever.
The ethanol is bad for the accelerator pumps.
Well, ethanol is bad for everything, and let me give you guys the 1 minute Dan Short dissertation on ethanol. Phase shift is your first problem. Ethanol is heavier than gas. It will settle to the bottom of the tank. And if you let a car sit for 6 months without stay-bil and without shaking up the tank, you're going to suck a really high concentration of ethanol into your carburetor. Then once it's in the carburetor, you've got the float, which is typically brass. You've got the needle and seat. You've got the nuts, all of these brass parts, and brass reacts with ethanol badly. It creates because of course brass is primarily copper, and the reaction that happens between ethanol and the copper turns and creates cupric oxide, which is that green scaly stuff that looks like the Capitol Rotunda roof. And when that happens, then your carburetor's in real trouble. So I tell people, if you're going to have a carburetor, you need to drive your car all the time. Like, drive it every week. Start it up and drive it. I don't care if you're just driving around the block, but drive it every week, at a minimum every month, and your carbureted car will start all the time.
Yeah.
And get ethanol-free gas if it's available. We try and run ethanol-free gas in as many things as we can.
Right.
That's more government poison. You know, and by the way, they're looking at going to 20% ethanol instead of 10, which is going to be really bad for these old cars. So, keep Stay-Bill. And no, I don't have any stock in Stay-Bill, but Stay-Bill does help the phase shift separation of ethanol and gas.
Hey, Dan,
you got everything next to you.
Dan, listen, I got to tell you this. We can talk about anything on a car, and Ray has it next to him on either side. You can just say anything, and he has it.
Probably does.
He's probably got a Cabra rebuild kit sitting there too.
Yeah, and he's in his basement.
It's on the other side of the wall, but I do have carburetor kits in stock. Yeah,
I love that.
I think what it is when the show's going on, he's listening to the key words, and he's got like a little guy back there that just brings him stuff and hands it to him, sits it there so he can show us.
That'd be cool.
That's pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Why is he gotta be a little guy? Why can't he be a big guy?
Maybe he's a big guy. We don't know. He was just being theoretical. Oh my gosh.
So be honest. Who here thinks that they would want to be on a TV show?
Well, we have I don't want to be rich. I don't want to be famous. How about that?
No,
I'd like to try.
I'd like to be on a TV show to get the perks.
That's
20 minutes of fame.
And you know, sometimes there are perks, right? Like for instance, I'll be honest. One of the big perks for me is what we're doing tonight, right? Just hanging out and having fun. And chances are, if FantomWorks had never been on a TV show, I got a feeling Lewis would probably never have called me up and said, "Hey, let's do the live podcast." And I understand that. So it has introduced me to a lot of new people, but being on a TV show is probably not what everyone thinks it is. Now, how many builders here get a little bit nervous when you've got a big build and your client is coming to see the car for the first time? By a show of hands, isn't that kind of a nerve-wracking, like a little bit of, stomach acids in your stomach, wondering if the client's going to love the car, right?
Yeah.
No? Doesn't? Let me tell you. Come on, razor blades every time a customer comes in, because they're expecting a magnificent car, and I don't want to disappoint them. So every time a client comes in, I literally have butterflies in my stomach. And so let me tell you, when they're filming you doing that, filming you the first time the client ever sees the car, stupid ass trick. I encourage the production company to air when the client sees trust. But I mean, you've delivered cars to customers and had them go, "Wait a second, I paid for this and you didn't do this," or "Why is this broken now?" And yet it had not. Has no one here had that happen to them?
We call that.
Radio.
We have a term for that. We call that the Sinju syndrome. And what it is when the customer comes back and says, "Hey, Sinju worked on my brakes. Now my radio doesn't work."
Yeah.
Send them to me. I'll fix it.
Stuff. Right. They do that, right? Let me tell you, they do that stuff.
Or they don't tell their wives how much they spent on their car.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
to that point, Dan, I've noticed
everything you can think of, they do to you on the TV show. I mean, they think that they're being like really smart and really crafty by pointing out something on the car that they think you didn't do right, or they think you didn't do, or they think you should have done differently. They think that makes them a much bigger man or woman to show you how stupid you are. So
the problem with that is because they're always they figure since you're building the car and they have the money, that they're the boss, they're the ones running the show. But we actually know a guy that takes, when the cars are all done, he takes one of the hubcaps off, and this is a guy over in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, but he takes one of the hubcaps off, and when they show up to pick up the car, or it'll be like a lug nut or an air cleaner or something. Yeah. And then, you know, they're like, well, where the hell's my hubcap?
He gives them something to point out.
Yeah, and it gives him something to point out and bitch about. And then he's like, oh, sorry about that. And he puts it on the car. They pay their bill and drive off. They totally forget about everything else. You know?
So how often do you show your clients their cars? Like, I mean, because one of the things that we run into is when we're, you know, doing metal work on a car, they think that stuff happens in TV time, that it's going to take us, you know, a week to build an entire car, and you really have to, you know, you really have to walk them through the process. But if they're seeing it every 20 hours, or, you know, like every week or every 2 weeks, you know, but how often do you show them their cars?
I encourage clients to come in twice a month. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Come in twice a month. Now,
then they know what they're paying
that
for.
is from out of state.
Oh, yikes.
So it's Virginia. But for anyone who, and I encourage twice a week or twice a month, every time. And some of them do.
Right, and that makes so much sense too, because then they know more about the process. And to me, I think that's the big mystery, is the process. You know, they don't know what goes into it, and they think it's going to be, you know, a 10-minute build, and bang, why isn't my car done? And you're like, because your entire car is rotten and we're rebuilding everything.
The problem, one of the problems that we have though with our shop is, you know, we have a lot of old cars out back. We have a lot of old cars out front. And the place looks like a museum inside of our shops. And when I say shops, I'm talking about all three. And people come here to like bring us money or whatever, and then they want to talk about their car
for 2 freaking hours.
For 2 hours, and you're like, you're wasting my time.
I'm just gonna start billing them. I'm like,
yeah, you have to.
Yeah. Well, so here's what I had to do there. I will give every client from my time talking about their car about 4 or 5 hours total on their project, and that's FaceTime. And typically they'll get that much more phone time too. So each client gets about 10 hours from me. If they start pushing that envelope and calling me every other day, which some do, what I've learned to do is I will actually talk to one of the techs working on the car and say, I want to give him your number, and I will only do it if the tech agrees. But then the tech says, hey, you're paying for the time, so as long as you want to talk, we'll talk. And that usually shortens the calls almost instantly.
It's like a operator.
When they got to start paying for the time.
These cars are their babies for the most part. They have such great expectations of these cars, and half the time they love them better than their families. And they want, you know, it to be taken care of with kid gloves. And then when you tell them you just, you know, cut off a big portion of their car to rebuild it. We actually had one guy, we had to leave some of her dents and stuff because she wouldn't have recognized her vehicle had we not, because she learned to drive in it, and it was a Jeep. Anyways, so where the Willys thing is on the front of underneath the windshield, we left some of her dents because she said, I won't recognize my own Jeep. And so that was like her little nod to when she used to run it into trees when she was 11, you know, that kind of thing. She loved it. She thought
but in the past,
go ahead.
In the past, I've actually had customers in the past where I built a full custom motorcycle for this guy. I got it all finished, and I mean, this guy's just, you know, banging money out to me, getting this job done. The motorcycle's finished. It's buffed out. Everything's new. I mean, the thing's beautiful. And the guy comes in there as a customer, and he's like, well, in the paint, I see this little scuff, and, you know, there's a little speck here, and he nitpicks the whole bike. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, you come back in like 2 weeks, I'll buff it out, I'll do whatever I got to do, and I'll get it tricked out, I'll get it perfect. That way, when you come back to pick it up, you can pay for it. He comes back in 2 weeks, and he's like, oh, man, that is absolutely beautiful. You did such a nice job. And I'm like, pay me, asshole, because guess what? I never touched your damn motorcycle. It's still that's what it is. It's all about, it's like the ego thing, you know. They come in there and they think that they own the show, you know, so they want to jerk you around.
What are these guys talking about? I want them to talk about it. I love that car.
Talking about Rogue.
Oh, I was like, I'm like, what? I'm not gonna damn short. So
Yeah, dealing with customers is interesting. One of my favorite stories, and this is from a gal that I buy a lot of parts for old Lincolns. But I asked her, she's been a shop owner for 30 years, and I will occasionally call and pee on her leg, when I get a client that's kind of pissing me off, and one day I asked her, I said, hey, in 30 years, how many clients just walked into you, looked at their car, paid the bill, and said thank you and took their car? And she said it has never happened once in 30 years. That's got to be tough. I mean, we're fortunate. We have about 80% just come in and say thank you. They love their car and they drive it off. So we're doing pretty well. She's got 0% so far, and I got to tell you, for me, 80% is still a gut-wrenching number, because that means there's 20% out there that they're going to find things to bitch about, and that's tough, right? You spend a year building a car for someone, and you want them to just love it, and they're going to do what they can to find something. I don't care what you do; they're going to find something wrong with the car. That's their goal.
Your attention to detail, that speaks a lot for that. That's huge. Right now we're doing a 63 unibody for a guy, and he really just wants us to do carte blanche and wants us to make it cool, really cool.
The only thing he said about the truck that he wanted, he says, we're doing everything the way we want. He wanted it blue. He didn't say what color blue. He just wants it blue.
He just wants it blue. And his kid wants it green.
So speaking of detail, like
plans are funny. You just never know what you're going to get, right? It's like that Forrest Gump thing.
Mm-hmm.
You open up
box of chocolates.
the box of chocolates and you take that bite.
But he stops in pretty regularly, and well, right, and that guy, he stops in all the time. He's not a time sucker. He's a businessman himself, so he gets it. So that's
and he usually stops in when he's working up in the fall by the Canadian border. So he'll come in, stay here 10 minutes, and say, I know you guys are busy, so I'm going to get out of here. And I love that. I think that's great, because most of the time people, like they'll be knocking on the window and I'm welding and they're like waving, and I'll just put my, I'll wave and then put my welding hood back and just go back to welding. And they're like, what the hell, You just get sick of opening the door. So I just started locking it, and it makes it nice, because now most of the time I lock it when Heidi's over, at the house or something, and she tries to come over. She can't even get in the damn shop. So
and he's like, well, you're always working at the house. I'm like, well, you locked me out again, jerk. But it's I mean, our shop is only it's like 40 by 60. It's not a huge shop. We're comfortable. I'm comfortable when there's like 2 cars in here. Right now we have our coach built car behind us, and the other cars are over at the paint booth area. So it's really comfortable in here now, because you could like have a barn dance in here if you wanted to.
But it's tough like working on only a few cars, because logistics are so tough these days. But it would be nice not to have to juggle, quite as many projects.
So how? I mean, what are you doing with all that? I heard you at the very beginning talking about all of the time that everything's taking to get. Do you have stuff just piling up?
Yeah. So we've gone to a formula. We normally keep a formula of 2.5 to 3 cars per tack, and now we've gone to a formula of 4 cars per tack. And that's just so that we have the extra time to order logistics. So I'm kind of deaf. When a car comes in, I give a guy about 2 days with it to do the initial assessment, order all the parts, and take care of a few things. But then he has to go to the next car. And I'm forcing guys to move, 2, 3, 4 days at a time on a car. And that's to keep the logistics flowing. Because if you work on a car until you some things that so it means more in the shop with not more guys. We're doing right now, I think, about 55 active projects.
So as far as like, I wanted to ask this, and I just remembered, but as far as like your TV show, a lot of these reality shows are just so fake. You see the fake drama in there, the made up drama and stuff. and one of the things that we really love about your show is, to me, it's very realistic. You show the hours that you work on the cars instead of, hey, we built this whole car in 3 days kind of thing, like some of these other shows.
And tripping and dropping the windshield.
Yeah, I mean,
that's my favorite.
Not on your show, but on other shows. But I like it that, like, on your show, it's very realistic, where you show a lot of the real stuff instead of the fake drama and whatever. And as far as the TV show, I mean, is it like that in real life? Is it, very realistic, or is it staged? I mean, do they have you do stuff?
Oh, you kicked them off. You scared away.
I pissed them off.
It was you. You were talking.
You asked too many questions. Wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah, stop asking so many questions.
Stop talking, babe.
Wait a minute, he's coming back.
He's got a coffee here. That'll help.
Hold on. There you go.
He's back.
He's drinking
I
coffee
figured out
now.
fast. Look, there was only like 2 things that we ever faked on the entire show. And when I say fake, they really did happen, but the camera just didn't catch them. And,
you just had to reenact them.
Yeah, so we would have to occasionally go in and reenact something. And that was, like, there was one part where one of my guys screwed up a fender and they didn't catch it. So they asked us to screw up another fender just to, like, have that moment. But 100% confident we never gave any piece of drama. If that was my rule with the network. I refused to go out and just make crap up the TV. I said, come on, when you're building 70, 80, 90 cars at a time, the cars provide more than enough problems that we don't have to make anything up.
Yes.
And we stuck with that.
We say that all the time. Yep.
Good.
There's definitely enough drama without having to fake anything.
One of my favorite episodes that you do, though, is that I believe it was that 64 Impala convertible, and you had the quarter panels there, and then when you guys got ready to put the quarter panels on the car, they'd been there for like 4 months or whatever, and nobody ever checked that they were the correct panels, and then your metal guy had to make those panels work on that car. That was the stuff that, like, I'm like, that to me is very realistic, because that happens to us all the time, especially with the aftermarket scene. The aftermarket stuff sucks.
Well, and I had to be very, very careful about saying anything like that, because most of those companies do commercial advertising with Discovery Networks. So, let me tell you, when I did my first sit-down meeting with the Discovery Channel marketing folks, and I said, look, I'm a big Buy American guy, and I will always buy American over international brands. And they looked at me like I had just called their mother the worst name in the world, because they do a lot of international advertising.
Right.
And at that point, they labeled me like a non-player, and I was kind of persona non grata as a result of wanting to be a Buy American First company. I mean, right down to our T-shirts. Our T-shirts cost about 3 times as much as anywhere else, but we buy T-shirts actually made in Georgia. But because I did stuff like that, believe it or not, I was kind of a little bit of the black sheep of the network for insisting that we were a Buy America company.
Good for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, let me tell you, I didn't make a lot of friends at the network. I'll just tell you that for nothing. Our show was extremely successful. We won 4 national awards. We're currently in about 70 countries around the world. They're still airing, believe it or not, new countries are still buying into the show. And so I get letters from Argentina, from Poland, from Norway saying, hey, we just found your show, love your show. I mean, we get those letters all the time. And yet I was never a big favorite with the network executives, because I insisted on doing the show the way I want instead of the way some of the people wanted to do it.
You drew the line in the sand. I like that.
Yeah, and it pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah, I bet.
So Dan.
Hey. Yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
So my favorite episode was the Chevelle that you made like a suicide door on the driver's side for the handicap. I thought that was awesome. What is your favorite episode that you remember doing? He just froze up.
So let's talk about cars, right? So favorite car to build, and it had a lot to do with the client, and it had some to do with the car, was that little blue Volkswagen convertible, that Bahama blue convertible. And the reason was, Volkswagens are actually traditionally a fairly hard car to paint well. They're an easy car to paint like crap, but a tough car to paint well because of all the convex surfaces. So on that car, we stripped it, and I was prepared for the worst. And the car was actually in really nice shape. I mean, we had some rust repair to do, but it wasn't like the whole body was eaten up with cancer. And ironically, where in the 70s and 80s, you could build a Volkswagen for nothing. I mean, literally, Volkswagen parts were practically sold at Kmart. Today, new old stock Volkswagen parts have become obscenely expensive. And so I'm going into this build expecting it to cost a lot of money. And every time we turned around, we just had a lucky break. And one lucky break after another. And the owner, Ray, was so excited that he just kept asking us to do more and more stuff with his car. And even when we got done with everything he wanted, everything we found, and everything he added, he still hadn't even spent the budget that we planned on from the beginning.
Wow.
So he was super happy. The car was gorgeous. So even though we can probably all agree that a Volkswagen Bug convertible is probably not the sexiest car we ever built, from the perspective of just having a fun build that went well and literally everything lined up, that was the car. On the flip side, the last show we did, which was the Metro van.
Oh yeah.
There wasn't two things on that vehicle that went right. Not two things.
Wow.
That vehicle fought us for 5 years.
No kidding.
Everything.
But it looked awesome when it was done, though.
Yeah, it was amazing when it was done. But let me tell you, that was a 5-year bleeding knuckle tug of war battle with a vehicle that just didn't ever seem to want to end. And I got to tell you that van came close to breaking the shop.
Wow.
So we had great builds, and we had some really tough builds.
Yeah, that sounds like us with the 35.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, those episodes that never aired, who has like all that footage?
New Dominion Productions still has. There's so many cars that we filmed that we never aired, and one of my favorites is a prototype Aston Martin that we built. I mean,
Really?
as far as I'm concerned, the most beautiful supercar in the world, the one that we built, and it never made air.
Wow.
And they were deathly afraid of Aston Martin because Aston Martin, like Ferrari, really protects their trademarks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the reasons it didn't air. Yeah.
It's too bad we can't see that footage now, you know?
Oh yeah, you have no idea how many hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage never made air. I mean, in fact, let me take that back. How many thousands of hours of footage never made air? Thousands of hours.
Do you have any control over that, or is somebody going to pop them out on you and cash in on it? With do you know?
No. In fact,
I mean, TV treat. I mean, everybody says TV treats you so well, and you're eating steak and lobster every night.
Yeah.
I just, that's the problem that I have with it. That somebody's going to cut you off at the end.
No. Just look. I never got paid. We never got paid a penny to do the show, but the plan was we were supposed to get royalties after it finished airing, and it kept going into reruns. And long story short, we got a letter a while back that said we'll never get any royalties either. So what they do with that footage is up to them. It wouldn't matter to me anyway because we didn't get anything for it, and we're not going to get anything in the future. So
I got to ask, it was a lot of stress all these years doing these shows and stuff, but I mean, if you could do it again, would you do it again? Was it worth it, or was it just all stress and not worth it? I mean, because obviously you had to have made money, or you're not doing it. You know.
You mean I had to make money as a shop?
Right.
You know, we average. Look, we're probably one of the lowest profit margin shops you've ever seen. We've averaged between 2% and 6% profit on any given year. That's our profit margins. So they're not good. So would I have done the show right now? The answer is no. If I could go back in time and punch myself in the face the day the producer walked into the show or walked into my shop, I would punch myself in the face and say, look, I've just saved you a lot of pain. Yeah, I would not do the show again.
Yeah.
It's got to slow you down big time.
You figure we had between 5 and 12 camera, sound, directors, producers, and writers in the shop, 14 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week, 51 weeks a year for 6 years.
Oh yeah.
I mean, literally, they were in your face, and if you were, look, I suffered 3 migraines a week because of the stress of shooting.
Oh my God.
Because I was also the primary field story writer for the shows. Because in order to do a show, you know, you might just think that they just follow you around, but if all they do is follow you around and watch you beat things with a hammer, there's not a lot of good story there. So the way each show would start is, once I brought in clients that the network agreed that, hey, we want to see the 62 Maserati and the 58 pickup. We want that to be a show. So what we would do then is I would sit down with the entire production crew and we would whiteboard the show based on what I knew was important to the client. So with the Maserati, you know, the owner's name was Ben. It had been his father's car since his father picked it up in Italy. So we sat down and we said, look, what's important here is the family connection, the fact that it's got mechanical fuel injection, and the fact that the car is built like a taco. And I could explain that later. I won't bother now. And so what we did is we architected story points so that the film guys knew, like, if they were changing tires, they didn't bother filming it because the tires weren't part of the story arc. But if we were doing anything that had to do with, like, the dent in the car that his father had happened to him, well, that was a big story arc because that connected the owner with his father, who was dead, with the car, which was new. So we had to write the story of these cars before we even started them, just based on what the owners told us about what was important. And so, you know, for each show, before we even started filming, we'd spend 20 to 30 hours just writing story arcs and plot lines and what we were going to shoot for and what was not important on the car, and setting up meetings with clients. I mean, the amount of work it took to create the level of story that you saw was actually, you know, like many, many hours a week. I spent 30 hours a week in front of the camera on top of the time we spent writing story with the editors and the producers. And I personally edited every show other than the first one. I was the primary editor. So,
wow. The stories are what really keep me riveted. So you did a great job at that. Honestly, that's one of my favorite things about it, is the personal stories.
We tried. Look, let's face it. We don't build transportation for clients. If they want transportation, they can go out and buy a used Kia for $4,000. You know, if you're dropping $100,000 or more into, you know, Dad's Studebaker or Grandpa's Lincoln, it's not because you need transportation. It's because you want the memory. And so that's what we spent all the time on the show trying to do, was connecting the story to the car's origin, the original owner, you know, and how it sort of interweaved with the family. So although it sometimes seemed a little random to just, you know, have them filming a guy pulling out a transmission, there was a story arc that connected that transmission to the family, of that vehicle in every case. Everything you saw was filmed with an intent to connect it to story. And that actually took a ton of time for a lot of people. I mean, we did have a lot of really great story producers that worked on the show, really, really good. And that's why I think that the show did connect with a lot of people, because it was far more personal than like most of these build shows, which are just about, you know, let's throw some wrenches in the shop and smash a windshield and then deliver a car or flip this car to make money. It was never about that.
Some sort of circus at the end or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Tried to always make it about connectivity.
Was there ever a situation that the camera crew or whatever, like there was a problem or something, you're like, will you just get the fuck out of my way?
I on a few occasions threw the entire camera crew out of the shop and said, you're gone for the day. Just get out of my face.
I know it was the episode with your guy, he smashed his thumb or something, and he's like, I think he's like, tell the camera crew, the guy, like, get out of my face or something.
Yeah, they actually, that was the only time they included that in. Believe me, if you take that moment and multiply it by 1,000, that's what really happened. Yeah, it was a constant battle crew because they both needed to be in the middle of action and needed to stay the hell out of it in order for it to happen. So it was tough. Let me tell you, I admire the film crew because every person on the film crew, I think to a man and woman will tell you, it was probably the single toughest show they ever filmed. And let me tell you, the film crew that was on this show, they have filmed shows, like they were the crew for a lot of the crew for Deadliest Catch and for half of the other car reality shows, plus shows like 60 Days In. I mean, you know, the film crew that we had working on this, these are guys and gals that have worked all around the world on some of the biggest shows that have ever been, and they would all admit that shooting FantomWorks was the toughest thing they ever did. Because of the nature of this wasn't reality. Look, if Richard Rawlings is reality TV, I'm Cinderella, okay? But what we did by standards is basically considered visceral reality. It was very close to almost like news documentary footage, right, where they're catching things as it's happening.
That's what I liked about your show, though.
Yeah, that's mostly what we did.
When we first started watching your show, and I'm being honest with you, so if I hurt your feelings, I don't really care. But when we first started watching your show, I was like, I hate this guy. I can't stand this guy.
And I was like, I love this guy because he's so detail oriented. Yeah. And the car comes first.
And then we started really getting into your show, and I was like, I really liked how he documents the hours and the stuff that's going on with the cars, and he tells people, stick it up your ass, I don't care, you know, whatever. I'm like,
great attitude.
So you did awesome with your show, man.
Well, you know, I got lots of black eyes over it. I mean, I can't even tell you how many of the guys at the shop went home depressed. I actually had guys in tears in my office over what people would write about them on social media when they saw a show. If people didn't like something they saw, I mean, they would write just the nastiest, meanest letters. I learned to just tune out everything. I stopped reading every single thing online and just tuned it all off because it was tough to watch because, you know, where you say it, I agree. Look, I am who I am. I'm unapologetic about it. None of that was acting. I tell people I'm the world's shittiest actor. I play one role, and that's the role of Dan Short as business owner. And I think I do that role fairly well. But we didn't make stuff up on the show, and what you saw was real. And when people said, Dan, you're an asshole, it's like, you know what? That's what you got to be a business owner and actually survive in business. And if you tell everyone they can have everything they want for the price they can, you know, the price they want to pay, then I think you're going to be out of business in a week. So, you know, I'm unapologetically who I was on the show, and that really was me, and there was no acting involved.
You care about the cars. That's the most important thing.
Well, you know, let's face it. That's what we're there to build memories, and if the memories go out and hurt people, then not only have we not done our jobs, but we've kind of, you know, we've screwed it up in every way possible. So, you know, my goal was in every way. When a client sits in his or her car for the first time, in many cases after 10 and 20 years, I want them to relive the experience that they had the day they bought that car brand new, or whenever they bought it, or I want it to be the best day they ever had. And I got to tell you, for the most part, that's the experience most of our clients have. And I take that, that's a big emotional important thing to me. I want them to love the car. Everybody.
Yeah. And that all shows on your show as well.
It does.
And the other thing that I think is important, and shows also, like you mentioned, buying American parts, the interaction you have with active and retired veterans and military personnel, how you help them out with the builds on the show. That's also, I know it kind of gets underplayed, and I think it maybe gets even sequestered a little, but it shines through. If you know what you're looking for, it's there, and I give you credit for that.
Thank you. If you remember the show, there was a man named Richard, and I really wish we could have filmed the first phone call I had with this guy, but he was the Vietnam vet that died in the middle of us building his car. And it was tragic, because I truly love this guy. I mean, he was a great guy, and I'll be honest, he didn't have a great budget. His car was a shit show when it arrived. I mean, we talk about these cars that arrive from other shops, and let me tell you, the guy that had built that car, that guy needs to put down his wrenches and step away from the tools. It was it was not a good build at all. But I'll never forget Richard. He calls me up and he goes, Dan, if I have to crawl to you from California on my hands and knees, I will. But I want you to build this car. And so, whether that was a line of crap or not, I don't know. But the man seemed genuine, and he drove to Virginia to talk to me about his car. And at that point, I thought, I don't care how bad his car is. We'll help this man out with it. And so when he died, it actually profoundly affected me. It wasn't, like other people that die, and people die all the time. But when Richard died, he had actually become a big part of the family because of just how much he obscenely loved that car and how much that car meant to him and his family. So at that point, because his family didn't have any money when he died, so what are you going to do? You got to finish the car. So we did. We just finished the car for the family, and I think really, I mean, morally, you have no other choice, right? What are you going to do? Kick the car out and say to the family, figure it out? So I don't know that I was that big a humanitarian. I think I did the only thing that you could do as a builder. You had to finish the car for the guy's family.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah, but the only problem with that is that you just don't. Not to say that you want the recognition from it. It's just that you're still the bad guy about it somehow. I mean, that's the only problem about that, about trying to help a guy out or help at the end. And the media is not going to show that part of it for you, though. That's
well, you know what they say, no good deed goes unpunished. So my dad taught me that a long time ago.
True.
Mm-hmm.
No, but if I remember correctly, you did make a point in the show of having a little staff meeting, explain to the guys that the owner had passed, and your thought was to finish the car and who's on board. And they gave a show of hands. It was unanimous, and they all agreed to finish that car. And I think that was a fitting wrap up to that. It was nice.
And the you surround yourself with too. It shows
the folks at the shop, I got to give them a lot of credit, because the men and women at that shop, and I say this without exaggeration, if today one of the guys or somebody broke down or something happened and the folks needed to stay at the shop till 8 o'clock at night, they would. And I mean, to a man and woman, they will. They have done it all the time. I can't even tell you how many nights Audrey has stayed at the shop till 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night, helping to get a car ready for the next day. And I mean, that's off the clock. I don't mean they stay there on the clock. I mean, they will just hang out. They might grab a beer while doing it, but they'll grab a beer and they'll go back to work, polishing and detailing a car and cleaning it up and doing a couple last details. And they do that on their own, and they're really good about that. A lot of shops, they say, this is the family, but I got to tell you, at FantomWorks, there really is a whole lot of that family kind of environment. It's very cool.
That's
All right,
awesome.
nice. Hey, I gotta jump in real quick. We're going on in 5 minutes. It'd be 2 hours.
It's the longest, huh?
That's nothing
Yeah,
new
and
for us.
for what it's worth, I get
Past
up
your
at 5.
bedtime, Lewis.
Wait a second. Are you telling me it's
Yeah.
11
This is a
o'clock?
weekly occurrence for us. Come on.
Yeah, it's almost 11 o'clock.
Lewis is
So-
always in bed by
Now
now.
you're in the club, brother. Now you're in the
Yeah.
club.
Well,
So,
and I
listen, Dan.
appreciate that, but I might be out of my wife's club, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, 6 hours from now, we're on our way to work. So
Yeah, us too.
Yeah.
So, hey, Dan, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I mean, I know you're a busy person, and we loved everything about your show, and we loved having you here. And you're part family now. We tell all our guests that, hey, once you're here, you're family, so you can come anytime you have something to talk about or you just want to hang out. You're always welcome.
well, thank you. And for my 2 co-hosts that I've now spoken to several times, Lewis, Ray, honor again to hang out with you guys. I told you I can talk the ears off of Wooden Indian. I apologize for hanging out for 2 hours,
No.
but I was having fun. Folks, thank you all. But yeah, it is time to go to bed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. Nice meeting
Thank
you.
you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Well, I'm going to blow the
Hope your
candles
power
out.
goes back on soon.
Yeah, we have no power. I've got a flashlight and 3 candles, so I'm going to
No
shut
way.
my computer off before the battery dies and hit the rack. But folks, it's been an honor, and to everyone out there, sorry we didn't get to the questions online, but we had a lot of fun just BSing here, and perhaps we'll come back and do it again, Ray. And
You're a trooper with your candles
Dan.
and flashlights, so that's pretty epic.
Yeah, you did good.
Dedicated. That's outstanding.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.
Good talk.
Yep.
Good night.
All right, everybody have a good night.
Bye. Bye, Lewis.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, guys.
Yep.
Good seeing you. Good seeing you.
Hi,
Gee, is
guys.
this the longest it's stayed on or what?
No.
Yeah, that's crazy,
I
huh?
think so. Hey,
Well,
that
have
was
the
a good
chassis John.
conversation.
Is he
Sorry,
watching?
what?
Let's see.
Oh my gosh.
There he is.
Hey,
the whole
what
time.
you doing?
You missed all the fun.
No, I was here the whole time. He put me in, and I don't know, and then it
You
disappeared.
were eating.
I was eating an ice cream cone.
It's Florida. It's hot down there, right?
Ours kept cycling us
Yeah.
out, and we don't know what the heck was happening there because we
No,
were.
no,
it's
I was
all
here the whole
internet.
time.
It was all internet with the weather and all where Dan was. It's the whole East Coast is getting racked with.
Thunderstorms every day.
John sent it all north to us. It's like
We can't.
The weather's
didn't
going
get-
crazy because my
We
daughter
got
called me.
nothing.
My daughter called me earlier and she said they had 3 earthquakes today in Farmington, California, which is only 1 mile from where I lived in Stockton, California. So.
wow.
Ah.
So yeah, and we always have rain. Like at least like once a week in the summer, we get a good rain, good soaker, and it's been dry for what 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So let's just like, what the heck?
Now we got that today for sure.
Shut up, Joey.
Oh, not you guys. He's talking to somebody with the comments.
That storm buzzed right past us.
Did
Hey,
it?
Ray.
Yep.
How far are you from Rockville Center?
To 2 towns away.
Oh. So I got on the phone with this guy, a company called South Bay Fuel Injector Company.
Oh, that's
Frank.
Frank Fuel.
You know Frank.
Yeah, I've used them before. I've had them on my show. Yeah.
Actually, now that you mentioned, I think anyway, I mentioned him about this show, and
He's
I'm going to give
actually
Lewis his
only-
number.
He's about a half mile away from the shop I work at. He's just down the road a little bit. He's right there. But
I was on the phone for like a half an hour the other night. I just ordered new injectors, fuel pressure regulator. I'm still messing with my truck.
No, Frank knows his stuff. What he does, if you walk in the shop, I brought him injectors for my car a while ago, and he'll put them on the bench and test
That's
flow
leaving
them
it.
right in front of you. He issues a full report, and then he'll rebuild them or do what's needed, test them again, and then include that in the report so you can see the before and after of the injectors. And
Nice.
it's
Pretty
all
cool.
in-house. He does it all in-house.
I just ordered all brand new ones from him, but
Right next to a Dunkin' Donuts.
no, you got to have that, right?
Oh,
Strategic.
problem.
That's strategic.
Right.
So you bring him a coffee. Oh, can you check my injectors for me?
Right. Yeah,
Well, you know how
Or-
all the
or-
car guys drink coffee, so that works out great.
Sure.
that's it.
Sure.
I'm going next door to get a Krella.
Yeah. Hey, I had a weird one today. You know, this is driving me freaking wild. I'm working on this Grand National again, and we found out last week that the cooling fan wasn't coming on when the engine got hot, and it almost overheated.
There's 2 relays on the driver's fender.
There's 3 relays.
Oh, because I just rewired one about a month ago.
3.
Why
right
3? Low speed fan, high speed fan, and a delay relay for when you shut the car off. If it's hot, it'll stay on.
Oh.
So what I had was, I actually kind of approached this backwards because I didn't have my data yet. I didn't have a scan tool. I didn't have the flow chart. So what I did is I just popped the relays and I just jumped the socket. I just powered it on, and I got the fan low speed and high speed. So I know the wiring from the sockets to the fan and the fan are good. So now that I started getting data and I'm doing tests, I'm finding it took me into the car to check the fuse for the relays, because I wasn't getting ignition on power at the socket. I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. So I go to the fuse box, and there's a fuse for the fans that was missing. And I looked inside that the 2-pronged, the 2 holes, and you can see a brass female terminal in one side and nothing in the other. There's no terminal. I actually pulled the fuse. I pulled the fuse box, and I felt behind it for the terminal I did see, and there was no wire on that. It was just a stub. I was like, what the hell is going on?
So was there power on that terminal side?
No, because there was no wire. When I put my finger behind it, there was no wire.
So that was the feedback to the relay. That wasn't the...
I don't know what's going on. I had to leave it like that today because it's just really like, where is the fuse power, to the relay, the ignition on power to the relay. I got battery voltage. I have that. I don't have.
And you put AC on it, kicks it right into high speed, right?
It's no. Actually, I didn't try it with the AC. I was doing all the other tests first to see, because with those cars, a lot of times the problem is the ECM is bad. The ECU goes bad, rather. So of course that's where the control comes. I looked at the temperature sender switch. I said, okay, could be a bad temp switch. So I took it out. I had, again, no data at all. So I said, let me try this. I put an ohm meter across it. Saw like 1,300 ohms. Okay, heated it with a heat gun and used the temperature probe until it got to about 200 degrees. Measured it again, and I saw 300 ohms. So I said, okay, I see a temperature variant on the switch. I have to assume, at least for now, that that's good. And then I found that there's no fuse for the fan. So, and this is a one-owner car. The guy bought it brand new. He's owned it ever since. So that's where I left it. Came home and went in the pool. I said, screw it, I'm going to go.
I got a friend of mine that does a lot of Grand Nationals. He puts the fast computer systems in them. He's got a Grand National that does like quarter mile, like, I don't know, 5 point something seconds. I swear to God, that thing is stupid fast.
5 seconds.
Anyway, he says that the power feed, I guess there's a fusible link down at the starter, that feeds those relays go bad all the time.
Okay, I went through that with my Joe today, and he asked me. He texted me. He says, "Do you have a dome light and a cigarette lighter?" And I went in the car. I'm like, "Yeah, dome light," and I had a lighter. He goes, "Okay, because when the fusible link goes bad, you lose those."
Oh.
So I said, "Okay." So again, we're chipping away at it, one little piece at a time. But why there's no fuse and only half a terminal in the fuse box defies logic. It doesn't make sense.
Sure, the other side, that wire isn't just like kind of flopping around.
That's
You had to
what
get
I remember.
that little tang that locks it
Like
into the fuse box.
the one stayed and the right wire and the other one fell out. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Well, that's what I was shooting for. I know it's a brown wire too. I mean, I verified it I know because I looked at the schematic and I also looked at the relay block. It's a brown wire, and there's just like 1,000 wires behind that fuse box.
Yeah.
But even though I removed it from the firewall, I could only move it maybe a half an inch because everything is so freaking tight.
Otherwise, you got to undo that connector on the firewall side and pull the whole thing through.
Yeah.
It bolts in from the inside of the car. So once I unbolted it, I could move it, but the wire harness holds it.
Right.
Do you have a wiring harness for the car?
The one that's in it, yeah.
No. Do you have a wiring a different book, or are you using all data or something? Because
Joe was sending me some, like I said, this is one of the flow charts from All Data. He was sending me some of the All Data stuff, and I have the.
Because it might be an option. It might be a different. That might not even be used.
Right.
Truck's the same way because it has like when I had the same problem with the daytime running lights or whatever, it said there's a fuse in there. So I go into the fuse, and it had the same thing. It had one post, and one post was empty.
Okay.
And it never got used. And of course, I'm digging around doing the same thing you're doing, trying to figure out why. And then I found, I don't know, I kept digging around, and actually another distributor came by. He's got the same year truck I do, and he had the fuse where I didn't.
Uh-huh.
Realized it was on how it was built, and I eventually found a whole different place. So that relay, the fuse board wasn't even right. Of course, on your trucks, those things are all just made anyway. I mean, they're not 100% accurate, but that might have been an option for something else on the car.
I get that.
Yeah.
But just talking basic electronics. I mean, a relay. You got ground on 30. You got 85 is your battery power, and then you have ignition on 8. It's terminal 5 on that relay, which is what, 86. So you have to have ignition because that's what excites the relay to trigger the device. So the wire's in the socket on both of them, and where does that go? So if the fuse, and it's always fuse protected. So if that fuse isn't the one that's called out in the fuse box, where do I look? I mean, everything else in the fuse box is marked and labeled, and nothing else.
Yeah, I was just wondering, if it was because they had an option. If they had an optional, a different type of AC or like a climate control, or they had something
on the auxiliary.
Could be anything. Like I said, if it was the actual AC, the Germans were famous for this because they would have, good, better, and best, like with their climate control, where it would have a sensor, or one would be cable, one would be vacuum operated, and you could have all these different things. And like I said, you might, if it went into the head of the controller, which was sending the power out instead of the fuse box. That's the only reason why I'm saying that.
Yeah. This is just a Buick, so, but I don't know. There's got to be something, and I got to find it.
What, and you said that was the fan had 3 different speeds. Is that what you were talking about?
No, there's 3 relays for
the 3 relays. Okay.
One fan.
One fan.
3 relays. So one of them is for low speed only, and when I jump the block, it comes on low. The other relay is for high speed only, which works high speed, and the third one is called a delay relay. So that if the car is hot and you shut it off, the relay closes and the fan stays on until the temperature comes down. Then that relay opens.
Right.
So where's the other end of that? At the fan or at some?
Well, it depends how you want to look at it. I mean, that's actually the middle of the circuit, the relay. Okay. But yeah, that's what I verified, that when I jumped the block and made the fan come on, I know the wiring from the relay box from the block through the front harness to the fan is good, and the fan itself the fan motor is good because it comes on.
Yeah.
So the other half of that is the temperature sender, and there you go. There's your relays. It's the temperature sender.
Isn't that how it's supposed to be on that?
ECU. It's kind of Okay.
You have battery on each relay, right?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Yeah. I got battery voltage. I have VCC. I don't have ignition.
So do they all have that third speed?
No.
Because I'm on team not fused.
So Ray, I blew the fuse with my power probe when I was playing around. The fuse is high on the fuse box.
Yes,
I swear it's a 3 amp or a 2 amp.
5 amp.
Oh, 5 amp. But I remember it was super at the top.
It is. It's top right.
So that's the one that's missing power.
There was no fuse there because there's only one terminal.
That's
Brian
weird.
said. There's one. You can see the one female terminal.
So can you take a pigtail, plug it in, and then just put a little fuse holder and jump it back over to the ignition? You know how you get those empty slots?
Yeah. I didn't check if there was power on that because the first thing it just blew my mind. Like, hey, where's the other half of the terminal?
You just take a continuity meter and just see, because there's 2 senses. Believe it or not, the load doesn't kick in until I think 185 or 195, and then believe it or not, the high speed doesn't kick in to 230 something. If I know it sounds stupid, unless the AC kicks in.
Or when the AC comes on.
Yeah, and it's too high. I don't know why they do that.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
But that's how they ran those cars.
What was the whole reason that you were chasing that down in the first place? What was going on with the car?
I changed the brake booster and master cylinder.
Yeah.
So I know how stupid that sounds, but this is what happened. The car had the original electric booster pump on it that it came with. Well, when they fail, like this one did, you have a rock hard brake pedal. The things are unobtainable.
Yeah.
So what you do is you buy a regular master cylinder and booster, and you just convert it. So I did that, but now the problem is there's nowhere to get vacuum for the booster on that engine. All the vacuum hoses are like quarter inch, not even quarter inch, 3/16, 5/32. They're all small vacuum lines. So there's a vacuum block on top of the intake. And
but that's like that's an electric vacuum block, is what you're talking about, or
it's
just a regular vacuum.
It's like 4 or 5 vacuum lines in there.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a company that makes a billet block, and all the lines come off one side. On the other side, they give you a nipple for an 11/32 hose to run to the brake booster. So we did that, put the brake booster on. I come over to the shop, and the owner of the shop, he's standing there, and the car is running. And, I said, okay, what are you doing now? I'm just running the car, checking things out. Okay. And we start hearing this rumbling, like the worst stomach rumble you ever had in your life. And he looks at me, he's like, is that a bearing going bad? And I'm like, that's not a bearing. It was the cooling system. I said, this car is running hot as hell. And I saw the level starting to rise in the coolant bottle. And I said, holy shit, shut this thing off. And then I lowered the hood. I'm like, get the hell away from this car. I thought the thing was just going to blow, with coolant all over the place. And it didn't. It held together. But then we realized, like, hey, the fan isn't on. Why isn't the cooling fan on? And he asked me. I'm like, I don't know. It's not my car. I worked since you, right? I worked on the brakes. I didn't work on a fucking cooling system. What are you asking me? That's exactly what I was talking about. So now, of course, it becomes my job to find out why the fans aren't working. I had nothing to do with the freaking fans.
What if you were to take some of those relays and switch them so that you're checking to see if one of the other ones are good? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I did not determine that the relays are good or bad. Like I said, when I jumped the socket and I activated the fan, that's what I was curious. That's what I wanted to see. I don't really care if the relay's bad. I can check. I'm not now that I got into it. I'm not getting ignition feed at the relay terminal, so the relay's never going to latch. It's never going to close.
The bulkhead connector. Sometimes they used to get corrosion and stuff on certain GM cars. Maybe unbolt it and then just look at it and put it back in.
I couldn't even see it. It's so hidden in that car. But I'll tell you something. The relay.
I just wonder if you disturbed it when you did the brakes.
No, I was kind of careful.
I'm sure you did.
It wasn't even an issue. But these relays, when I pulled the relay socket off, I use a dielectric grease, which is kind of like clearish, milky color. Someone uses black tar stuff. I don't know if it was GM, but it's like, and I got it all over my fingers because I'm cleaning it off with brake cleaner. It's just like tar.
Well, the one I had, one of the relays was actually bad. I just replaced it with standard Bosch relay. The other one was fine.
Like I said, I haven't ruled out that the relays are bad, but at this point, it's a moot point because until that socket gets power to turn the relay on, a good relay is not going to work. So that's my conundrum now, is to find out where the fuse is for the relays. It's not in the fuse box, or at least it's not where it's supposed to be.
Oh, that 5 at the top was definitely the ignition feed on mine, but you said there's no terminal on the other side. So
yeah, that's what I saw through my old data too.
So just grab continuity and just see from the relay to there, and if so, then just feed power in it and call it a day.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem with me. I like to find out why. Like, why did this insanity happen? Again, it's a one.
It had to work at one
OCD.
time.
It's a one. No, I like to complete the dot the I's and cross.
I don't blame you.
It's a one owner car. It's got 73,000 miles on it. The guy never uses it. So it hasn't been screwed with by 100 people. That's the weird thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I like to know why and how things work. So yeah. I'm with you there. But that was the first thing I thought.
It must be kind of complicated, because if you Google fuse for fan relay on a Grand National, there's about 200 videos on YouTube on it.
Really? I didn't do that yet. Yeah.
So that's, I'm pretty sure you could sit down with some popcorn and a and watch a few of the YouTube and get an idea where to go.
Yeah.
I think everybody has a Grand National story though too, don't they?
Yeah. I just Googled where's my fuse for my fan relay for a Grand National, and it's a half a dozen different YouTube relays.
I'll give you one better. Here's another one. It's OBD1, right?
Yep.
So what I was going to do is bring one of my old scanners. I got a BorgWarner, the BDM scanner, and I got an Autel. I wanted to do bidirectional control, see if I could command the fans on. So the Autel, it didn't power up. I'm looking at the ALDL connector, and it's the old 12 pin, just 6 and 6.
Yeah.
So usually top right is power ground. Well, where the ground should be, pin A is empty. Pin B has power. No, that's the ground. I'm sorry. Down at the bottom, I guess it's pin 6, 7, or 8 is the ground. It's on the bottom. They're not next to each other. So I think what's happening, I'm plugging the scanner in. It's not following the convention that the scanner follows. And I'm thinking, did somebody change the pins of the ALDL connector?
I think why
would you do that?
I think there's I think there's an adapter pin. There's two.
I have to change the adapter.
Oh yeah, to slide the pins in on the OBD1 and some of those.
I did the old test. I jumped it.
Did you use the
paper clip? I'd see at least the check engine. I figured I'd see the check engine light flash. No. So I don't know what's going on.
You know what you do? You buy a controller from Durali. You flip it and you plug it in.
You know what? I was talking to a friend of mine that does a lot of car builds, and he sent me a link to an external controller. And I said, it's like $24. I was like, I already got like 4 hours of diagnostic time into this thing, and I'm not much further ahead than I was before.
Same thing I put in that Camaro project.
Yeah.
Feeded battery power.
Right.
A couple of sensors for temperature and a switch for your air conditioning.
The one he sent me too, it just feeded battery power, but I was thinking like, power that thing with a relay.
Okay. Well, guys,
there's relays built. The one I got has relays built into it.
Oh, okay, maybe that's it.
Yeah.
All right, you guys.
Yeah, we're gonna get out of here.
Yeah, we've had a couple really late nights. I think we're all wonky from my kid's wedding a couple weeks ago, and then the 4th of July, and now we don't even know what time it is. I don't know what direction I'm going.
And then last night we did a live on
a 5-minute live.
Yeah, I told her.
Later.
I said I want it to be just a real quick live so we could check our new camera and computer and all that. And then a couple hours later, here we are. Not with you guys, but I'm talking about last night with our other one. So
right.
I can't believe how fast this one went tonight, though. I was like, holy crap, we've been on here 2 hours already.
Dan's
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he seems like it. But you guys, it's been great chatting with you.
We'll see you next Thursday.
Sounds great.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
I'm going to figure out how to get this thing off.
Thanks, Bill, Joey, NZ Mopar, all you guys.
All right, bye. Thank you, guys.
Later.
Good night.
Adios, everyone.
Oh, boy.
Unreal.
Scott, too. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Crazy.
Tomorrow I have to go get an eye exam. I hate those.
Why?
Because they dilate your eyes and then you can't really see good for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
A pain in the neck.
Is it just a regular
Yeah, just a regular checkup. Visit? I think they need to change my my reading glasses prescription.
Uh-huh.
We'll see.
Right.
I don't know. So.
Yeah.
Hey, check it out. I put let's see. I put a camera on the car. You know what? Hey, since I got this computer fixed, it's amazing. Putting a solid state hard drive in here.
John, in your honor, just yesterday I ordered an SSD drive for my computer with the mounting kit and the cable. I ordered it yesterday.
This thing, it boots up instantly. Everything fires up instantly. It doesn't have to sit there and read the drive, to load files, to do. It's just like boom, boom, boom.
I was trying to remember
But
this night
I'm always leery of solid state drives because they turn on, boom, 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 and then when they break, boom, and you can't recover anything out of them.
There was a site I wanted to tell you about earlier, and I forgot. It's called Crucial.com.
Yes, Crucial's good. Crucial memory.
I
use Crucial memory.
I actually bought the drive and more memory right through Crucial. Because I said, okay, they're going to be more expensive. So I printed it out, and I looked at Micro Center because I have one right there in Westbury, and the prices were the same. I said, screw it, I'll just buy from Crucial, free shipping, send it.
Crucial's good stuff. All my computers have Crucial memory in them.
Yeah. So, Brian, what do you think? The Derek had to call me over yesterday. He's like, come here, Macco man. I'm like, what? Where's what? Brian here? No. He had to show me that
out my
on
camera.
a BMW bumper. He says the socket won't work.
Oh shit!
Right? Those studs. Now you need a 5-inch or a 6-inch socket. That's You see the length of those studs?
I saw that, and
ridiculous.
Wow, what did I do with the? I got the. Shit, what did I do with that? I was looking through the German catalog.
Yeah.
The tool catalog. It must be out on the. I don't think I left. I thought I brought it in. I was going to send you the picture. But they had who is that? Not AST. God, who is that? Oh man, my mind is so bad.
They're making a socket like that now?
Yeah, they have it's like it's actually, you can tell it's German made because it's like a socket welded onto a tube, then it has the end on. It's like you can see it hasn't been made in production, I don't think yet.
Right.
Okay, it was something like 2000 and I want to say 2018 and up or something like that. They were talking about it was a bumper bolt.
Yeah.
Bumper bolts or something like that. God, I gotta try to find.
That's what he was working on, and I was amazed. He called me over and he puts the socket on. I'm like, holy shit! This, the end of the stud is coming like through the socket. I was like, yeah. You need now a 5-inch or a 6-inch socket.
Yeah. Oh shit! God, what did I do with that? That was terrible. I got. I'm all messed up because I got my truck back Thursday.
Good.
Last week.
Right.
And I brought it home and I said, I just want to finish the week out in my daughter's car. Instead of moving everything back, of course, I get the truck all ready. And Monday I went out 36 miles down the road. The thing acted up.
No.
And so I had to take it back. And the guy's like, I got to give him credit. I mean, he took care of me, but it's like, oh, well, maybe you need to call a dealer or, and I'm like, I spent all this money and time, and so luckily he got it back on it was kind of funny because Tuesday, I know he closed. He's like, is it going to be done today? He goes, yeah, I'll call you. And it's getting to be like 5:30. And I knew I was going to get that phone call like 10 minutes to 6. Like, can you be here to pick it up? Or you just got, that's it. And so I went on out there and he's like, it's not done yet. And I'm like, I'm not leaving until it's done.
Yeah, I'm staying.
So this whole week has been a cluster. And then of course it's funny. I had a toolbox today that I sold. And just like what Dan was saying, you have, I hate that because, you have no control over when it comes. So you don't know if it gets scratched, beat up, destroyed. Of course it's, we're talking over $10,000. And, of course the guys had it for 2 days to look at it. And I walk in there and it's every little thing, it's like, dude, I didn't paint the thing. I didn't build the thing. There's some you got to understand to a certain point. I mean, it's not so it's just.
Yeah. I get it. Not like, but on the other hand, it's a big purchase. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, but when you're getting down and dirty into it and looking at like, well, there's a little crease in it. I was like, dude, it's a toolbox. I mean, that's why I kind of like what Arco said. He got that dude leaving one part off, so that you can separate the whole thing from.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
So, yeah, but I'll have to look because I saw something where they had, I think it was 2018 or 2016 on up or something with a different tool for that.
Yeah.
For that bolt on the BMWs.
So
why are they making these things with such long, with so many threads hanging out past the nut? What is the reason?
John, it's 5 inches long. With a little 10 millimeter nut on. I don't know, but the BMW.
Well, I don't know if it goes through. I don't know if that's going through the backside of the car. That's usually like on the.
No, that was on the.
Pockets were made for the lights because there was a double wall panel that it went through, and that.
Okay, I can understand that, but you look at how stuff is manufactured. It's all about the cost. And I don't care if the stud, like, let's just say it's a tail light and it's got to have a stud and it's got to go through 6 different panels. So it has to be 10 inches to get through. Then they're going to add the nut and then they're going to add 2 or 3 threads and they're going to say, okay, it's 10 3/8. Boom, make $1 million of them. So you're still using a standard socket. Why would they be doing something that's got a stud that sticks out 6 inches? Then that means the nut is 5 inches in. What is the reasoning?
That's right. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I know when I was putting the headlight in my daughter's Jetta, I could not believe how much adjustability the headlight. The headlight itself, not even to adjust the beam of the light, but the body and the float in the front bumper, it was like a double eccentric nut and bolt. And it took me like forever to figure out, like, if I turned it one way, the light went this way, but if I turned this, then the light either came forward or back, to get it flush. And the only thing I think of is the reason why they have that is, like I said, when you're putting it together, if you have to shim it or, granted, you don't need 5 inches of a stud hanging out there, but it must be for computer, or when the robot's putting it together, it's how they're holding it or something.
The other thing
then think about it though. If you've got, let's say it's assembled, okay, like Ray was saying, you put the socket on it and the stud was still sticking out the bottom where the ratchet would go. Mm-hmm. So is there a reason that you got to thread that nut on and drive that nut 4 or 5 inches in?
Yeah.
Is it because they're afraid that you're not going to find that stud if you can't see it and you're going to drop it and it's just going to sit there in the valance?
No, it might be that without that length, there's no way to find it. It could be because this is from the bumper facing back. I'm looking at the bumper was flipped up on a stand and they were sticking straight out. So that means they were facing straight back towards the vehicle when it's assembled. So it may be like you said, like a guide. But again, he's got the 4-inch socket, and that was the tool that did it. And now he showed me, hey, I didn't get to cut it. Now I need something. So I said, how did you get it off? Could he put a little an extension on it, and it hits the stud. He put a little pair of vice grips on the end, and he's turning it with vice grips. I was like, holy shit.
It's ridiculous.
Until you got to
then I tell you, he said, let me show you another one. We go right outside. He's working on like a Tahoe or maybe a GMC. Yeah, it was a GMC.
Yeah. The hood scoop on the front of my hood has like a 4.5-inch long. There's like 3 or 4 of these 4.5-inch long studs.
Well, he wasn't.
I don't understand it. It's a scoop. It just goes into the hood,
right?
And it's got these giant studs on it.
He had the whole front of this thing. Well, it was a front end collision, and he was changing the condenser. So he comes in the shop and he's looking for an Allen wrench. I'm like, all right, well, I got Allen wrenches. I'm like, good. He goes, no, I need one long. So I grabbed the T-handle and said, here, what size do you need? And he's holding a screw. I'm like, all right. So he goes, no, I can't use the T-handle. It won't fit. I'm like, well, what do you need? He goes, I need it. So I'm showing him my Allen keys. He goes, no, he needs one where the short end was longer. I'm like, they don't make them like that. I'm like, you reverse it, use it the other way. I said, show me what you're doing. Show me what you're doing. So we go out to this GMC, and he's got to put the bolts back in the the Freon lines that go into the condenser. There's a screw that holds them in. And the way that they were in there was you had to get in with a long tool, and a regular Allen wrench wouldn't work. So what I did, and it was an odd angle, I went and I got I guess they're 5-inch ball end drivers.
Yeah, ball ends are good.
And I was showing him, and he wasn't getting it. So I said, let me see. He goes, not going to work, not going to work. I said, step aside. Give me the screw. I put it in, and I'm threading it in. I'm like, look, tell me this ain't working. Tell me now it's not working. He's like, oh. And I showed him. I took the screw out. I put the ball end
those
driver.
ball
said,
end ones.
You could do this. You could like shift it like a freaking shifter. I said, these things are the best things since sliced bread.
Yep.
And I
until
said,
they break off in the head of the ball.
Up there, I haven't had that happen.
You can't put a ton of torque on them, but they're good to have.
Well, so this guy, like I said, he's from Guyana, so he's very industrious. I said to him, Derek, how did you get these out without this tool? How did you do it? And he showed me he had like a little Allen key, and he put like a little pair of pliers on it. He was like, dude, you work too hard. I said, you get it done. You get the job done every time. I give you credit, but
yeah.
I said, get a set of these.
It's like those videos you see with the barefoot guy with the torn up shorts, and he's working on the ground, and he's like hammering stuff with a handmade hammer, and he's mud everywhere, and it comes out good.
Yeah,
weird.
Yeah, I cannot tell you how many times when I walk into a shop and see a guy struggling so hard, and I say, here's the tool for that job, and they look at you like, no, that doesn't work. And they sit there for hours and hours and hours and hours doing
I will tell you, I'm the exact opposite. If I'm fighting with something and you show me a tool that works better, I will pay you whatever you want.
Exactly.
I'll give you whatever you want for it. Just give me that freaking tool. I don't care.
Yep.
And and I know, John, I know you do that too. A lot of these guys don't, like Derek doesn't have that mentality. He'll make something.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to make a tool, like even like a socket. We're talking about welding a tube onto a socket. And I'm like, yeah, you could do that. I said, or you could buy the right tool. I said, I'll put the bat signal out, and we'll see if the tool exists. We'll just check it out. But the ball end driver, he looked at me after that, and I said, don't ever doubt me again. I said, you can question what I tell you. I said, because I don't know it all. I said, but if I tell you this is going to work, I said, at least humor me enough. Give me the respect to humor me. And then if I'm wrong, stick it up my ass as hard as you can. I don't care. I deserve it. I said, but if I'm
damn right, easy.
I said, no, well, this is what it comes down to. I said, because listen, you weren't listening to me, and I know I was right. I said, so at least give me the respect of showing you what I know. And if I'm wrong, then you stick it up my ass. But if not, then you bow down and say, oh, the tool god, take two again.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's just a little shop politics,
Yeah, it was tough. It's hard for me sometimes because I just look and walk away. And
I should have, because now he knows where they are in my toolbox. He's going to be using them all the time.
Tell him to buy a set.
Yeah, he will. He probably will. He goes, hey, does Harbor Freight have these? I'm like,
oh, God.
Probably.
Yeah, but the plastic handle is good for one shot.
Right. I said, yeah, I probably do. I don't know. I actually got them because on my Fiat, of all things, to take the seat out, the tracks are held in with Allen head bolts. And like the seat doesn't go back enough to get a straight shot at the Allen head. You need a ball end driver because you got to be at like a 30-degree angle. And I ended up, I think, with 2 or 3 sets of them over the years. They're just
they're good to have.
Yeah. Hey, if it makes my life easier, give me 2.
They gotten better. Some of them, like I said, they're a little thicker now. They don't snap.
It's a little squarer.
Yeah, they have
That's rounder. Yeah.
Yeah, bigger base.
That's a big one.
So the cheaper one, these are all pretty decent because they're pretty thick where they go.
Right.
Some of the cheaper ones is pretty thin. You got to be careful because once you break that off inside, trying to drill that.
You can't get that little ball
See,
out of
but I
there.
would think that you'd be able to pop it out because it's not a press fit. It just kind of.
If you it locks in there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it goes in kind of like a socket goes over a bolt head.
No,
like,
it
locks
9
in.
times out of 10, that ball will kind of like over center and be in between before it pops.
Yeah, I've never had that happen.
And then it's in there, and then there's no way to pick it out. And if you got the bolt out, a lot of times you can bang the bolt with a hammer, and like the way you bang a ball joint, out of a steering arm.
I mean, this was a 5mm driver that I was using. It was, it wasn't big.
I hate metric.
Small.
But metric is easy.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of numbers when you start getting to the American.
I know.
There's a lot of numbers.
There are.
And then there's some weird stuff. Like I have a couple of weird wrenches. Like every now and then I'll run into something that's a 1930 seconds.
Yeah, or 930 seconds. Yeah, that's another one that's
that's a weird one. A 19. I got this wrench. It's 1930 seconds. It's like in between a 7/8 and something else. It's and every now and then you run into one of those bolts. It's like, are you kidding me? And then try finding that. I mean, I've had that wrench for probably 30 years.
He needed the other day a 7mm wrench. And I'm looking, and the wrench that I have only goes to 8, but I have a lot of, extraneous wrenches in the drawer.
Yeah.
And the Craftsman wrenches. So I'm looking through, wait, and here it is. He's like, oh, you have it? I'm like, 7mm Craftsman wrenches, man. Here it is, 7mm wrench.
Go.
I'm like, just make sure I get it back.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, what do you like the way my suspensions come?
Looks gorgeous. Looks phenomenal. Very nice.
I put when I turned my camera on, I sent the thing to Lewis. Send me the link.
Yeah.
And then I had paperwork to do, so I stuck the webcam on the back of the car, and I walked away.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, okay, I'll come back when it's time to go online.
Yeah, it's coming around. It's coming along great. It's beautiful.
It's awesome. I'm ready to this weekend. I'll be putting the anti-roll bar in the car.
How are you going to finish off that rear end?
There's bracing that has to still go on it.
No, I mean
there's a lot of stuff that's got to go on the rear end. Oh, color wise?
Yeah, finish. What are you going to do to finish?
I'm going to have it powder coated silver.
Okay.
Metallic silver.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna paint the roll bar. I'm gonna paint the roll bar itself. All of the roll bar tubing that's in the car.
Yeah.
Silver.
Okay.
Because everybody paints them black.
Yeah.
And years ago at the chassis shop, I said, you know what? Let's try silver. See how it looks.
Yeah.
And I had my body guy paint one of our pro stock chassis in metallic silver. I told him, I said, I need spaceship silver.
Nice.
And he came up, Bobby Canty came up with this really nice, not a lot of metallic, but something that you could actually see.
Nice. That's good.
And it woke up the car.
Sure.
And then the next logical progression was we got away from black tin work and went to clear coated aluminum.
Wow.
So it was a silvery aluminum.
Right.
And the customers were like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Because a drag car, black tin, a black roll cage, it's like crawling into a black hole.
Right.
You do the whole car with a silver cage and silver tin, and it's bright, Yeah. It's just better. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I don't know if I'm going to paint the chassis. I was probably going to wind up painting the chassis black. Just, the frame rails and cross members and stuff like that. And just do the roll bar, all of those tubes that are in the car in silver.
Yeah, and by having the rear end silver and the shock silver, that's going to offset the black and underneath.
Right. You got the aluminum shocks. You got silver powder coated springs, a silver metallic housing, and I'll probably do the same thing. I'll have them maybe do black 4-link bars or do them in silver also. And
Who's
the
shock
wishbone.
What manufacturer of the shocks?
Those are from Strange Engineering.
Okay.
With QA1 springs.
Yeah.
110-pound springs. So yeah, it's coming along. But there's a lot left to do on the rear end. The rear end's only at stage 1. It's the 4-link brackets. They're only tacked on in 4 spots in each space, on each side. There's a crossbar that goes under the housing that spans across to each 4-link bracket.
Yeah.
And then there's these 3/8 tubing, heavy wall tube that's bent at a 45. 2 of those go on to that tube and the 4-link bracket, and those are where you put your tie-down loops when you're in the trailer.
Yeah.
You got a place to hook to. And then there's the actual bracing, which is not on there yet because I have to have everything cut and fitted before I put some slots into the bracing. It's like it's folded. It actually starts out, I think it's like 2-inch by like 4-inch rectangular tube.
Yeah.
And they cut it, with a plasma cutter to fit the outline of that housing. But then once you put the 4-link brackets on, now it doesn't fit anymore. You have to slot it where the bracketry is, and then you have to cut it. And it's long; it's too long, so you have to cut it to fit for where you wind up putting the housing end, and then you got to finish off the end. Otherwise, you wind up with a gap. So there's still a lot of work to do on the rear end.
The loops, the brackets you're talking about for the tie downs.
Yeah.
Do you make those or do you buy them?
I make them. I buy 3/8 065 wall tube, and then I put them in my little bender and bend them at a 45.
Because I want to install some on my own car, just in case I ever got to be towed or tied down.
Yeah.
I don't want to go around the rear end. I don't want to go around the tubular front end. I want to have some tabs on there, and I don't know how to go. If you could just buy them.
Yeah, you can buy them. There's you can get them from the company that I buy a lot of my chassis parts. My local company is ART. They have them listed in there as tie down loops.
Okay, all right.
I'll send you a link.
Yeah, please.
Good. You just weld them on.
Right.
So just as long as you got 2 flat surfaces, or if something's at an angle, you can grind it and make it fit. Yeah. So that'll work. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to do, but I'm getting there.
You're making forward progress, which is great.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I had a question because I didn't want to hit any buttons. You know how you can, when you do the thing on Instagram, you can post to Facebook, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
but I'm under the impression on the stuff that I clicked off that it wants a post to my Facebook page, whereas I wanted to post to the Half Breed page.
Yeah, there's got to be a way to.
They ask you to for your login,
right?
Which is going to take you to my page. It's not going to take you to Half Breed.
Why not? Why? Well,
there's a little icon. There's a place where it has your name, like your page, yours.
Yeah.
You click on that, and then a window drops down, and it has all the other places.
Oh.
Click on that and say share to that. I have that with my Hey Maco Man and my with my regular Brian McKinney one, and then I have Hey Maco Man, and then we also have a group. Our district has a group, so I have 3. So when I go up there where it has my picture, the picture of me, and it has my name.
Yeah.
That it drops down and it has the other ones that you want to go to. So then you go down, you click on that, and then you hit the share or post, and it goes to that.
Okay.
And just
you
so
have a chance to do all three if you want.
I know you're not using it, but if you were to also send it to Twitter, it only sends a link to Twitter that'll bring you back to Instagram. Whereas if you post on it'll put the whole post on Facebook with the pictures.
Right. Because I specifically didn't do anything in terms of like auto posting.
Yeah.
I felt what I wanted to do is I kind of wanted to catch up. In other words,
I don't know if you can see, but like,
so I could get the two of them even.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So
it ain't gonna show.
No, it's not showing.
When it comes up, it'll say news feed.
Right.
You click on that, it'll come up and say, your news feed, or send it to a friend, or to your other page.
Okay.
And you just click on.
So you just got to go through the steps and do the login deal, so it gets hooked into Facebook, and then you can drop down to your pages.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
I think they changed.
I didn't go that far. I got to the point where it wanted me to log into Facebook, and then I just X'd out.
Right.
Because I'm like, well, this is not. It's going to wind up posting on my page, which I could always share it, but I shouldn't have to do that two-step.
Right. Right.
So, okay, that's fine. So at least as long as I know, because the Facebook page is where it started.
Yeah.
And then what I was doing is I got this thing going, and I had to go back basically to kind of start the Instagram deal. So now the two of them are even.
Yeah.
I was doing simultaneously. I was doing double posts. I would post onto Instagram, and then I would go back and post on Facebook. And I got the two of them where they're even now. So if I can save a step by just shooting pictures on the phone and then going to Instagram, and then Instagram automatically stuffs it into Facebook.
Right.
Then
When
I
you
don't have
go
to
from
deal
the
with
Instagram side, when you get down to the last right before you post, you write your caption. It has tag a person, add a location, create a promo, add a fundraiser, and then it has the Facebook, and that's where you lay in the different pages. And you can click it. It'll say, "Do you want to do that automatically?" And like mine stays on all the time.
Mine used to stay on, and now I see when I go in, it's off. I have to turn it on.
Oh yeah, no, they just changed something because I used to have to do the same thing, but now it stays on.
Yeah, mine's doing the opposite.
And it did. And then of course you have your Twitter, Tumblr, and then you have event. You can add, like I said, you can add other Facebook pages on there.
Oh, okay.
If you do it from the Facebook part, you can, like I said, just drop that window down and then send it out.
So in other words, if I go on Facebook, I can send it to my Instagram also? Or is it just from Instagram to Facebook?
Instagram to Facebook.
Okay.
I wish they'd let you do it the other way too, but
it would be nice, considering they own both of them.
Yeah.
So Brian,
I'll tell you what. You know what's really pissing me off with Facebook? The last post that I just did on Facebook, which is identical to the last post on Instagram, is getting a ton of action. But the problem is when you look at it on Facebook, and this isn't just this post, it's everything. Facebook has gotten to the point where they're so lazy that it automatically does most relevant answers.
Oh, yeah.
So
in other words,
you can change that setting to see all the comments.
But you have to do it manually each time you go to look at it.
I know.
You can't lock it into all comments. It defaults to relative.
Yeah.
So it's a pain in the neck.
Or if a friend made a comment, it'll show that on. If you're you're a friend with somebody, and they made a comment, that's the only one that shows. Then you have to go through and
So I this thing, it's got like over 100 likes. This last post that I made, and it's got like 50 comments. And the problem is you'll see a comment, and then you go to reply to that person, and if you don't at first go to all comments, then it winds up that your reply to that person is not under his reply. Like I had a guy that I know from the island ask me a question, and then I replied. But when you look at it, because I didn't have all comments open, it wound up putting it above him.
Oh yeah.
So contextually, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
You know, that's the stupidity of those guys.
So Brian, speaking of questions and all, I sent you. I got an email from Matco yesterday, and they were asking. They were very. It was all about color choices of tools.
Oh yeah.
So they sent out a color survey, and they wanted to know specifically. You know, I just forwarded you the email because you can open it and you'll open the survey, you can see it for yourself. And they were, like what companies do you think of when you think of like match the tool company to the color that you associate with, and how do you buy tools? Is color important? I mean, it was all about tool coloring. So maybe they're changing their plan.
Huh.
That'd be pretty good.
I haven't heard anything. That's interesting.
Yeah. I forwarded it to you. So you'll see.
Did you send it to me now?
No, I sent it to you yesterday. Yesterday? I think it was yesterday.
You know what the big problem is? Every tool company is affiliated with Red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mac Tools, Red. Snap-on, Red. Matco, Red. Everything's Red. Craftsman started it. Started with the red. Everything was red. Like Ford. You could have any color you like as long as it's black.
Yeah.
I like the way they make toolboxes in different colors. I wish they had colors when I bought mine.
I did. I sold this Thunderstorm gray with blue trim.
That's
Man,
nice.
Talk about a sexy toolbox, boy. I tell you one thing. That was a beautiful box. I got another I got one of those screaming green ones. That crazy green.
I think I showed you a picture of that.
Yeah.
My transmission guy.
And
it matches his Dodge Charger.
I got a blue one coming. That's supposed to be here next week. Blue and the guy, I couldn't get the guy into chrome. Mine's blue. I love our blue. It's a royal blue and with black trim. And I think it makes it look too dark. The chrome trim really pops on them. But yeah.
Well, look for that I sent that to you through my Hotmail account, not the other accounts. It was the Hot Rod.
Oh, really? Okay, it might have gotten thrown in.
That's where they mail it. So I just forwarded it from there.
Okay, I'll look. Because it's kind of they never tell us any of that stuff. I mean,
that's why I sent it to you because I figured you wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff they don't tell us, and I wonder. I don't know if it ever goes anywhere because, when we tell them, especially when they came out with the blue ratchet and how much it went over, and now people are asking for blue screwdrivers.
Yeah.
And they're saying, well, it looks too much like Cornwell. But, when you look, this is a Cornwell ratchet, and this is their blue and black, There's ours is 10 times sexier than this.
Yeah, well, definitely nice.
This is nothing fancy about,
Right.
And I can't believe they're going to say people are going to get confused between our blue and theirs.
Yeah, I don't understand it either.
That's why they make the big money.
I guess.
I don't know, guys. I just wish the shit would straighten out and I can get my crap together and just have a normal week.
Right. Well, you do. It's got to happen soon. You definitely do.
But you guys have got bad weather though, right? From that storm.
Oh, up here, yeah, we got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's bad weather coming. We were watching, we watch the news every night.
They're saying at like 4 a.m. it's going to kick in. It'll be Elsa now, like 4 a.m. into the morning, like 8 or 9, and then the rest of the day is gonna be nice. But
it's gonna slide right over the island.
Yeah. Actually, before I was watching the weather, as it was pouring outside, the storm was going northeast, and they said, "Oh, if you're in Northport in 10 minutes, you're gonna get a deluge." I'm like, okay, that's how they track the weather now. They 10 minutes to tell you, here it comes.
I have an app on my phone. I have this weather app that I downloaded on my phone.
Yeah.
And I slid the switch over for announcements, and it'll go beep beep beep, and it doesn't matter where you are. In other words, it knows based on your cell signal GPS where you're at.
Right.
And it'll make a pleasant triple beep, and a banner comes on your screen, and it'll say rain starting in 5 minutes. Yeah. Or it'll say heavy rain in 20 minutes, then ending soon.
Nice.
And
I got that down.
It's an unbelievable app, and you could time it almost to the minute. Yeah. Boom. 10 minutes later, bam, the skies open up, and then within 15 minutes, it's gone.
I got some update on my computer, and I have that on there now. I don't know where it came from.
Do you remember what the name of the app is? Do you know what the name is?
When I got my phone inside on the charger, I'll send you a thing on it. Yeah, I just downloaded the app,
Great.
And it's awesome. And then I have another one called My Radar. You turn it on, and it'll leave a blue dot based on where you are, which is, I'm sure it's the exact same telemetry that you use when you're using the mapping for driving.
Google Maps or whatever, yeah.
Right. And it'll show you a satellite view of where you're at, and it'll show you the cloud movement.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable. And then you can move it around, you can zoom it in, you can zoom it out. So I use it like when we're going out on a boat. I want to know, is there weather coming? Where's it coming from? Is it coming from the East Coast? Is it coming from the Gulf? Is it working its way up from the South? And it's phenomenal. So that's a whole nother one, and it's got all different colors. And there's a little mapping thing on the bottom that tells you, what those colors represent. And it's an awesome. I've used it all over the country. It's fantastic, and it's called My Radar.
Cool.
So you can download that one.
Right.
But it's funny because, like I said, on my computer here, they'll tell me rain's coming, it's raining, rain will be over soon. It tells me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because, like I said, it's pretty damn close on how it is.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got on my computer.
That one is, because I haven't had luck with weather apps on the phone. They've always been
Yeah.
If I get a good one, that'd be cool.
So, did you watch the hockey game last night?
Nope.
Oh man.
No. Fucking hockey. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? It was brutal. Oh my God. It was roller derby on ice.
Wow.
And let me tell you something. They were killing each other.
Who was playing?
Because it was a do or die. It's the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Okay.
Against the Canadians.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
For the Stanley Cup.
Right.
And we won the first 3 in a row. Boom, boom, boom.
Wow.
So they had to win the 4th, and they didn't. The Canadians won. The 4th game was in Canada. So they had to come back to Tampa for the 5th. Yeah. And the Tampa players, all they've been talking about is like, we won the cup last year in the bubble. We didn't have anybody to celebrate. We were in Canadian territory. They hate our guts. They were pissed that we won. So it was not a good celebration until they came back,
Right.
So they really wanted to win on their home ice. And it was 1-0 game.
Wow. Yeah, it's like the Yankees winning the World Series in Boston. Like, you can't celebrate. You got to come home.
I know. So it was it started the game 4 in Canada. They started getting rough with each other, and they were throwing some penalties and the whole 9 yards. Game 5 down here, sometimes there were dual penalties at the same time. The refs threw both of them in the penalty box.
Nice.
They'd be skating full speed, and the guy would just turn around and he would put his shoulder into the guy's chest and knock him right into the glass. They were killing each other.
It's like slap
Unbelievable.
shot.
High stick. Yeah, it was worse than slap shot. It was roller derby on ice.
The Hanson brothers.
And then there was just this in the the first period 0-0. Second period, there was an opening and there was a huge scuffle for the puck. And one of the Islanders, one of the Lightning, flipped the puck over in front of the net. And their goalie, he was to the left because that's where that guy was. He was thinking he was going to shoot right at him. He was all set up for it, and he shot past him. And there was another Lightning player sitting there and just went and tipped it right in. Yeah. So it was the first score was 1-0, and then they just fought back and forth for the next period and a half. And it got to the point where the Canadians pulled the goalie, and there was like 5 shots on goal, and not one of them went in.
Oh, God.
But they basically just kind of ran the clock.
Yeah.
And they got it to the point where they won the cup.
Excellent.
And the place went crazy because we don't have any restrictions here. So the arena was packed to the rafters, standing room only. And then outside the arena, there's this gigantic plaza. And they have big projection screens. And they've got laser lights and insane concert audio. And you could go there. And it's a party outside the arena.
Right.
And watch the game. You bring a folding chair. And you watch the game, and they've got kiosks. You could go get beer. You could go get something to eat. And you'll have a whole party outside. And the place just went mad.
Nice.
So this weekend is going to be the Stanley Cup boat parade. Here in Tampa, cool. they have a boat parade for everything.
Right.
They have a boat parade for the pirate that comes by every year that tries to take over Tampa. They had a boat parade for the NFL when we won the Super Bowl, and now they're gonna have a boat parade for the Lightning. They had a boat parade for the Rays. And you go right through. It's where I go with my boat all the time. You go right through the city of Tampa. The Hillsborough River runs right through the city.
Nice.
So it's awesome. Yeah. So we may take the boat and be part of the parade.
Well, I tell you what parade I'm on. It's the one to throw the garbage out and go to bed. We did 3 hours. We're over 3 hours.
Yeah, right. 3:01:34.
Yeah. So
kicking ass here. Yeah, I got to get up early because I gotta go to the eye doctor.
Yeah.
But then I'm done for the day, so I'll be coming home and working on the car.
Talk with you guys soon.
Yes.
For Lewis Lee, Plain Traffic, Dan Short. If anybody watches this, I don't know, 3 hours, but
who knows?
Ray Guarino, Chassis John, Matt Goman, Brian. We'll be back next week. And
yes. Oh no, I won't. I'll be in Colorado.
Was that next week already? Wow, I thought it was going to be a couple weeks away. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy the trip.
Yeah, if I can get on, I'll get on. Maybe. I'm going to have my laptop, so I can get on.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. Awesome.
Excellent.
All right. Good.
All right, guys.